Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was thinking and acting like Minato? Subscribe if you enjoy the video. And also check the description. So let's begin the story. The village of Konoha bathed in the soft glow of morning light, dew still clinging to leaves and the scent of damp earth rising with the sun. Dawn patrol shinobi leapt silently across rooftops, their shadows stretching behind them like dark banners. Below, the streets remained empty, save for one small figure moving with deliberate steps toward the academy. Uzumaki Naruto walked with his hands thrust deep in his pockets, his gait measured, unhurried. Unlike most 12-year-olds, he didn't dash or skip. He simply moved forward, blue eyes scanning his surroundings with quiet calculation. The whisker marks on his cheeks caught the early light, giving him an almost feral appearance that contradicted his composed demeanor. Every day, he arrived precisely 43 minutes before class began. Not because he was eager for lessons, though he absorbed knowledge with a thirst that surprised his teachers, but because the academy library was open and empty at this hour. Today was no different. He slipped through the academy entrance, nodding politely to the Chunin guard whose eyes tracked him with the same wary suspicion they always held. Naruto had long ago stopped expecting anything else from the villagers. "Good morning, Tetsuo-san," Naruto said, his voice soft but clear. "How's your daughter's fever?" The guard blinked, surprise momentarily replacing suspicion. She's better. The medicine from the Yamanaka shop worked," Naruto nodded once, filing away the information. "I'm glad to hear it." He continued down the hallway, leaving the guard to stare after him. Information was currency, relationships were investments, and Naruto kept meticulous ledgers of both. Not out of calculation alone, though he was nothing if not calculating, but because his isolation meant he had to work harder for every scrap of acknowledgement. The library was exactly as he expected, empty, with dust motes dancing in the rays of sunlight that pierced through half-closed blinds. The familiar smell of old paper and binding glue welcomed him as he made his way directly to the reference section. His fingers trailed along the spines until he found what he sought: Advanced Chakra Theory and Applications. It wasn't on the approved reading list for academy students, but the library assistant who came in later never bothered to check what Naruto read during these early hours. He pulled the heavy tome from the shelf and settled at his usual table in the corner, where he could see both the entrance and the window. He opened the book to a dog-eared page about chakra flow manipulation and spatial temporal ninjutsu theory. His brow furrowed slightly as he traced the complex diagrams with his fingertip. "Space-time manipulation requires precision most shinobi never achieve," he murmured to himself, committing the passage to memory. "The slightest miscalculation can lead to catastrophic chakra dispersion." He'd been working through this book for weeks, piecing together fragments of information, cross-referencing with other texts, and testing theories during his private training. The facts never quite aligned with the rumors he'd heard about the fourth Hokage's legendary techniques. But Naruto was nothing if not persistent. His concentration was so complete that he nearly missed the soft footfalls approaching the library. Nearly, but not quite. His hand reflexively reached for a kunai he wasn't supposed to have before he recognized the chakra signature. "Iruka-sensei," he said without looking up. "You're here earlier than usual." Yumino Iruka paused in the doorway, his surprise evident despite years of shinobi training. "Naruto, I should have known you'd be here already." Naruto carefully placed a bookmark in his text and closed it, sliding it to the side as he turned his full attention to his teacher. "Did you need something, sensei?" Iruka studied the boy, his expression a mixture of concern and something else. Something that might have been pride, had anyone else been looking at Naruto. "The graduation exam is tomorrow," Iruka said, moving into the room and pulling out a chair across from Naruto. "I wanted to see if you had any questions. Your written scores are excellent, but the practical exams..." He let the sentence trail off, but Naruto understood the unspoken concern. "The Bunshin no Jutsu," Naruto said flatly. It wasn't a question. Iruka nodded. "Your chakra control has improved dramatically, but you still struggle with the basic clone technique." Naruto's eyes narrowed fractionally, the only outward sign of his frustration. "I've been working on alternative approaches. The exam requires the standard academy technique, Naruto. Not alternatives." A ghost of a smile touched Naruto's lips. I understand the requirements, Iruka-sensei. I'll pass the exam. The confidence in his voice wasn't the boastful declaration of a child, but the measured assessment of someone who had calculated odds and determined favorable outcomes. It made Iruka uneasy in a way he couldn't quite define. Naruto, Iruka began carefully. The other instructors have noticed your study habits. Your knowledge of advanced theory exceeds what we teach at the academy. Is that a problem, sensei? Naruto's voice remained perfectly neutral, but his eyes sharpened with interest. Iruka sighed. It's unusual. Most students your age are more interested in learning flashy jutsu than understanding chakra theory or tactical analysis. Most students have the luxury of being ordinary. Naruto replied, his gaze drifting briefly to the window where the Hokage monument was visible in the distance. I don't. The statement hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither was willing to voice aloud. Iruka knew about the nine tails sealed within the boy. Naruto had pieced together enough to suspect it, though no one had confirmed his theories. That unspoken knowledge shaped every interaction they had. Just be careful, Naruto, Iruka finally said. Some knowledge is restricted for a reason. Naruto's expression softened slightly. I appreciate your concern, Iruka-sensei. But knowledge itself isn't dangerous, only how it's applied. That sounds like something the third would say, Iruka observed with a half-smile. The third has survived 3 wars and outlived 2 successors, Naruto pointed out. His wisdom seems worth considering. Iruka laughed despite himself. You really aren't like other kids, are you? Naruto's answering smile was small but genuine. I've never had the opportunity to be. Before Iruka could respond, the sounds of other students arriving echoed through the hallway. Naruto efficiently gathered his materials, sliding the advanced text underneath more age-appropriate books. I should prepare for class, he said, rising from his seat. Thank you for checking on me, Iruka-sensei. As Naruto walked past, Iruka reached out and lightly touched his arm. For what it's worth, Naruto, I think you'll make an excellent shinobi. Your approach to problems reminds me of someone. Naruto paused, his expression carefully neutral. The fourth? The question was casual, but Iruka didn't miss the intensity in those blue eyes, so like Minato's that it sometimes startled him. Yes, Iruka admitted. Though I was very young when he was alive, the stories about how he analyzed situations, how he always seemed 3 steps ahead, there are similarities. Something flickered in Naruto's eyes, hunger, perhaps, or something deeper. Thank you for saying so, sensei. He slipped from the library as other students began to arrive, maintaining the careful distance he always kept. Not out of shyness or fear, but from the calculated understanding that close relationships were potential vulnerabilities, and that most people in Konoha preferred he keep his distance anyway. As he took his usual seat by the window in the classroom, he felt the familiar weight of stares, some curious, some hostile, most indifferent. The isolation had ceased to bother him years ago. Instead, he'd come to recognize it as an advantage. People who didn't watch you closely often missed when you were watching them. Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura burst into the classroom, their voices raised in yet another argument about Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto observed their entrance with clinical detachment, noting the social dynamics at play. Popularity, status, alliances. The classroom was a microcosm of the larger shinobi world, and he studied it accordingly. His gaze shifted to Sasuke, who sat brooding at another window seat. The last Uchiha's chakra signature always felt like a barely contained storm to Naruto's senses. Dark, roiling with suppressed emotion beneath a facade of cold indifference. A potential ally or a dangerous opponent, depending on how life unfolded for them both. Naruto Shikamaru slouched into the seat beside Naruto, his customary expression of boredom firmly in place. You've been reading that chakra theory book again, Shikamaru observed quietly, not bothering with a greeting. Naruto didn't bother asking how Shikamaru knew. The Nara's intelligence was perhaps the only thing in the classroom that Naruto considered a genuine challenge. It's interesting, Naruto said simply. Shikamaru snorted. It's troublesome. That level of theoretical knowledge will make people nervous once you start applying it. Good, Naruto replied with the ghost of a smile. Nervous opponents make mistakes. Shikamaru studied him for a long moment. You're aiming for something specific, aren't you? Not just becoming a shinobi or even Hokage. Naruto's eyes drifted again to the Hokage monument visible through the window. I'm aiming to fulfill potential, Shikamaru. Mine and this village's troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, but there was a gleam of interest in his lazy gaze. Of all their classmates, only Shikamaru seemed to see beneath Naruto's carefully constructed exterior. As Iruka called the class to order, Naruto settled in for another day of academy lessons he'd already mastered, his mind working on multiple levels as always, one part focused on the lecture, another analyzing his classmates, a third contemplating the chakra theory he'd been studying, and somewhere deeper, always calculating what it would take to step out of the shadow of the Nine Tails and into the legacy of the fourth Hokage. Tomorrow was the graduation exam. The first real step toward all his carefully laid plans. The morning of the graduation exam dawned clear and cool, the kind of crisp spring day that promised summer's approach. Naruto stood before his apartment mirror, adjusting his plain black shirt with methodical precision. Unlike his classmates, who would arrive in their finest clothes to mark the occasion, Naruto dressed for functionality. The dark colors helped him blend into shadows, and the numerous hidden pockets contained scrolls, wire, and other tools that academy students weren't strictly supposed to possess. He'd spent half the night practicing chakra control exercises, determined to overcome the persistent problem with the standard clone technique. His massive chakra reserves, which he'd come to understand were partly a result of his Uzumaki heritage and partly due to his tenet, made creating the delicate, insubstantial academy clones nearly impossible. It was like trying to fill a thimble from a waterfall. 3 more attempts, he told his reflection, his voice calm despite the tension in his shoulders. If the results remain inconsistent, implement Plan B. He formed the hand seals deliberately, focusing on restricting his chakra flow to the barest minimum required. Bunshin no Jutsu, a puff of smoke revealed 2 clones beside him, one reasonably accurate but slightly transparent, the other a ghastly, half-formed thing slumped on the floor. Naruto observed the results with clinical detachment. 66% improvement from last night's attempts. Still insufficient. He dispelled the clones and tried again, reducing his chakra output even further. This time, both clones appeared standing, but their coloring was off, skin too pale and eyes unfocused. 70%. Better but unreliable. The third attempt produced 3 clones, all standing, all reasonably accurate in appearance, but with subtle flaws that any experienced shinobi would notice. A slight shimmer to their outlines, fingers that weren't quite distinct. Naruto sighed softly. Plan B it is. He moved to his kitchen table where a scroll lay open, covered in complex seals and notations. He'd been developing this contingency for months, ever since he'd realized the standard Bunshin might remain beyond his precise control. The scroll contained his analysis of a different clone technique he'd glimpsed in a forbidden scroll he wasn't supposed to know existed. The shadow clone technique. He hadn't been able to see the actual method, but through careful research and theoretical extrapolation, he pieced together what he believed was a working variant. It wasn't identical to the forbidden technique, he lacked critical details, but it might serve his immediate purpose. A calculated risk, he murmured, memorizing the hand seals he'd derived. But acceptable under the circumstances. He glanced at the clock. Still early, but he wanted time to speak with the third before the exam. He carefully rolled the scroll and sealed it with a basic privacy jutsu before tucking it into one of his hidden pockets. The village was beginning to stir as Naruto made his way toward the Hokage Tower. Shopkeepers were raising shutters, street vendors arranging their wares, shinobi reporting for duty or returning from night missions. Most avoided meeting his eyes, their discomfort palpable. Naruto had long since stopped expecting anything else. The Hokage's secretary looked up in surprise when Naruto entered the waiting area. Uzumaki-san? The Hokage isn't taking appointments this early. Please inform Hokage-sama that I would appreciate 5 minutes of his time before I attend the academy graduation exam. Naruto replied politely, his tone respectful but firm. I believe he'll make an exception. The secretary frowned but pressed the intercom button. Hokage-sama, Uzumaki Naruto is here requesting a brief meeting before his exam. There was a pause, then the third's voice crackled through the speaker. Send him in, Ayako. Naruto bowed slightly to the secretary, whose frown had deepened, and entered the Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen sat behind his desk, pipe in hand, looking both older and more alert than his public persona suggested. Naruto-kun! The third greeted him, his eyes sharp beneath his hat. This is unexpected. Shouldn't you be preparing for your exam? Naruto closed the door behind him, then approached the desk and bowed formally. I am prepared, Hokage-sama. I wish to speak with you about a matter of some delicacy. The third's expression didn't change, but Naruto sensed his heightened attention. Go on. I have reason to believe that Mizuki-sensei may have ulterior motives regarding my graduation exam, Naruto stated calmly. The Hokage's eyes narrowed slightly. That's a serious accusation against a Konoha shinobi, Naruto. What evidence do you have? 3 categories of evidence, Hokage-sama. Naruto replied, his voice steady. First, pattern analysis. Mizuki-sensei consistently grades my practical exercises more harshly than Iruka-sensei, despite identical performance. Second, observed behavior. On 4 occasions I've noted him watching me with particular interest when I practice chakra control exercises, specifically when I struggle. Third, information gathering. I overheard him discussing with another chunin the possibility of alternative graduation requirements for certain students. The third set down his pipe, his full attention now on the boy before him. And you believe these alternative requirements might target you specifically? I believe it's a statistical probability worth your awareness, Naruto clarified. I may be mistaken, but given the village's unique interest in my development, I thought it prudent to share my concerns. A long silence filled the office as the third studied him. Naruto met his gaze evenly, neither challenging nor deferential. You truly are remarkable, Naruto-kun, the Hokage finally said, his voice soft with something like regret. At your age, to notice such things and analyze them so clearly. I've had to be observant, Hokage-sama, Naruto replied simply. The third nodded slowly. So you have. He reached for his pipe again. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I will ensure that your examination is conducted fairly. If Mizuki-sensei has any irregular plans, they will not succeed. Naruto bowed again. Thank you, Hokage-sama. As he straightened, the third asked. Your control issues with the Bunshin, have you made progress? A fleeting smile touched Naruto's lips. I've developed contingencies, I see. The Hokage looked momentarily troubled. Be careful, Naruto. Some solutions create more problems than they solve. I always calculate the cost-benefit ratio, Hokage-sama, Naruto assured him. The third chuckled, though the sound held little humor. Yes, I believe you do. That's what concerns me sometimes. He made a dismissive gesture. Go to your exam, Naruto-kun. Become a genin. The village needs shinobi who can think as clearly as you do. The village has always had my loyalty, Naruto said quietly, bowing once more before departing. As the door closed behind him, the third whispered to the empty room. So like your father, and yet so different. The academy buzzed with excitement. Parents gathered in the courtyard, siblings chattered, and graduating students preened and boasted. Naruto slipped through the crowd unnoticed, his presence a shadow at the periphery of their celebration. Inside the classroom, his classmates were a storm of nervous energy, Kiba pacing and cracking jokes, Hinata pressing her fingers together anxiously, Sakura and Ino arguing over who would be on Sasuke's team, Shikamaru pretending to nap while actually observing everyone. Sasuke sat alone, as always, his dark eyes focused on some middle distance only he could see. Naruto took his seat quietly, laying out his materials with methodical precision. Iruka entered, carrying a stack of written exams, followed by Mizuki, whose smile seemed especially pronounced today. Naruto studied him dispassionately, noting the slight tension around his eyes that betrayed hidden anticipation. Good morning, everyone, Iruka called over the chatter. Today you will demonstrate whether you have mastered the basic skills required of a Konoha genin. We'll begin with the written portion, followed by weapons accuracy, taijutsu forms, and finally ninjutsu demonstration. As Iruka distributed the exam papers, Mizuki's gaze swept the room, lingering momentarily on Naruto. Their eyes met, and Naruto allowed himself a small, knowing smile that made Mizuki's expression falter slightly. The written exam proved trivial. Basic questions about shinobi history, chakra theory, and tactical scenarios that Naruto could have answered in his sleep. He completed it with time to spare, using the remaining minutes to observe his classmates. Sakura finished nearly as quickly, her confidence evident. Sasuke worked steadily, while Shikamaru appeared to be dozing but had somehow completed his test. Others struggled with varying degrees of intensity. Weapons testing came next. Students filed into the academy training ground where targets had been set up at various distances. Naruto performed with calculated precision, not flawless like Sasuke or Tenten from the year above, but comfortably above average, hitting vital areas consistently without showmanship. The taijutsu demonstration required students to perform a series of standard academy forms, then engage in a brief sparring match with either Iruka or Mizuki. When Naruto's turn came, Mizuki stepped forward with that same tight smile. "I'll evaluate Uzumaki," he said to Iruka, who nodded distractedly while making notes on his clipboard. Naruto moved to the center of the practice area, settling into the opening stance with fluid grace. As he progressed through the forms, he maintained perfect technical precision while revealing only the standard academy style. Nothing of the additional forms he'd developed through private study. Then came the sparring portion. Mizuki stepped onto the mat, dropping into a ready stance. "Begin when ready, Uzumaki," Naruto assessed his opponent quickly. Mizuki was a chunin, physically stronger and more experienced, but overconfident and harboring some hidden agenda that made him slightly reckless. The optimal strategy was clear. Naruto launched forward with academy perfect form, engaging Mizuki with textbook attacks that were neither innovative nor particularly threatening to a chunin. Mizuki countered easily, a faint smirk forming on his lips. Then, just as Mizuki committed to a counter-strike, Naruto shifted his weight fractionally, creating an opening that seemed accidental. Mizuki took the bait, overextending into the apparent vulnerability. In that instant, Naruto's entire demeanor changed. His movements sharpened, his eyes focused with laser intensity, and he executed a perfect counter that an academy student shouldn't have known. His palm struck Mizuki's extended wrist, redirecting the force while his foot swept behind the chunin's ankle. Mizuki caught himself before falling, but the momentary loss of balance was enough. Naruto disengaged immediately, returning to the basic academy stance as if nothing unusual had occurred. The exchange lasted less than 3 seconds. Most of the watching students didn't even register what happened, but Iruka's head snapped up from his clipboard, and Shikamaru's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Sufficient demonstration," Mizuki said, his voice tight. "Next student." Naruto returned to the waiting area, ignoring the calculating look Mizuki shot him. The message had been delivered. "I am not as vulnerable as you think I am." Finally came the ninjutsu portion. Students were called one by one into a separate room where they would demonstrate the 3 basic academy techniques: transformation, substitution, and clone. Naruto waited patiently as his classmates emerged with the taite gleaming on their foreheads or clutched in victorious hands. "Uzumaki Naruto," Iruka called from the doorway. Naruto entered the examination room, where Iruka and Mizuki sat behind a table covered with neatly arranged forehead protectors. The Hokage himself sat in a corner, ostensibly observing the examination process, though Naruto knew his presence was a direct response to their earlier conversation. "Please demonstrate the transformation technique," Iruka instructed. Naruto formed the hand seals precisely, channeling his chakra with careful control. "Hanji no Jutsu," a puff of smoke enveloped him, clearing to reveal a perfect copy of Iruka, down to the small scar on his knuckle from a recent paper cut. Iruka nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Now the substitution technique." Again, Naruto performed flawlessly, switching places with the chair across the room so smoothly that the eye could barely track the movement. "Very good," Iruka said, making notes. "Finally, please demonstrate the clone technique by creating 3 functional clones." The moment of truth. Naruto's eyes briefly met the Hokage's across the room, noting the old man's intensified attention. He formed the standard hand seals, but with a subtle variation that would activate his contingency technique rather than the standard Bunshin. "Bunshin no Jutsu," he announced calmly, channeling his chakra not into creating illusory clones but into the variation he developed based on his incomplete understanding of the shadow clone technique. Chakra surged through him, far more than the standard technique required, and smoke billowed around him. When it cleared, 3 perfect copies of Naruto stood beside him, solid, detailed, and with none of the telltale flaws of his previous attempts. Iruka's eyes widened. Mizuki's face paled slightly. And in the corner, the Hokage leaned forward with sudden intensity. "These aren't standard clones," Iruka said slowly, rising from his seat. He circled one of the copies, studying it carefully. "They're physical manifestations. Solid clones. An adaptation I developed to accommodate my chakra reserves," Naruto explained calmly. "The standard technique consistently failed due to my inability to restrict output to the necessary minimum. This variant requires more chakra, not less, making it better suited to my particular capabilities." Iruka looked to the Hokage, clearly uncertain how to proceed. The third's expression was unreadable, but he gave a small nod. "The requirement is to create 3 functional clones," the Hokage said mildly. "Naruto-kun has certainly done so, albeit with an unexpected technique." Mizuki's jaw tightened. "But Hokage-sama, the exam specifically requires the Academy Bunshin. The exam requires demonstration of clone creation," the third corrected gently. "Naruto has demonstrated exceptional problem-solving by adapting a technique to his unique circumstances. Is that not what we hope to instill in our shinobi?" Iruka smiled slowly. "Indeed it is, Hokage-sama." He turned to Naruto. "Congratulations, Naruto. You pass." He selected a hitite from the table and held it out. Naruto accepted it with a formal bow, his expression calm despite the satisfaction that surged through him. "Thank you, Iruka-sensei, Hokage-sama." He tied the forehead protector in place, feeling its weight, the symbol of his first real step toward his goals. As he turned to leave, the Hokage spoke. "Naruto-kun, please see me in my office after the ceremony. We should discuss that adaptation of yours." Naruto nodded, understanding the implicit warning in the seemingly casual request. "Of course, Hokage-sama." He exited the room, leaving behind a fuming Mizuki, a bemused Iruka, and a Hokage whose expression had shifted from impassive to troubled. In the hallway, he allowed himself a small, genuine smile. Genin of Konoha. The first milestone achieved. "Tricky," Shikamaru commented, pushing off from the wall where he'd been waiting. "Whatever you did in there wasn't the standard clone, was it?" Naruto's smile faded back to his usual composed expression. "Adaptability is a shinobi virtue, isn't it?" Shikamaru snorted. "Troublesome. You're going to make waves, Naruto." "Perhaps," Naruto conceded, adjusting his headband. "But sometimes the water needs disturbing." Together they walked toward the academy courtyard where parents waited to congratulate their children. Shikamaru would find his father's proud smile, his mother's exasperated affection. Naruto would find no one. But for once, that solitude didn't feel like a burden. He had taken the first step out of the shadow and into the light of his own making. The week between graduation and team assignments stretched like an eternity for most of the new genin, who spent their days imagining glorious missions and speculating about team placements. For Naruto, it was barely enough time to adjust his plans and prepare contingencies. The Hokage's discussion about his modified clone technique had been both a warning and an opportunity. The technique he'd created wasn't precisely the forbidden shadow clone jutsu, but close enough that the third had been concerned and impressed. "You reverse-engineered a B-rank technique from theoretical principles," the Hokage had said, puffing thoughtfully on his pipe. "Most jonin couldn't accomplish such a feat, Naruto-kun. I had limited information and pressing necessity," Naruto had replied simply. "It's an imperfect replica, yet functional enough to pass your exam," the third countered. "Do you understand why the standard shadow clone jutsu is forbidden to most shinobi? Chakra requirements and mental feedback risks," Naruto had answered promptly. "The technique creates actual copies rather than illusions, each containing a portion of the user's chakra. Upon dispelling, the user receives the clone's memories and experiences, which can cause psychological disorientation or damage if overused." The Hokage's eyebrows had risen slightly. "Precisely. Yet you created these clones with apparent ease. Naruto had simply nodded. They both knew why, though either would speak aloud of the Nine Tails and its vast chakra reserves. In the end, the Hokage had done something unexpected. He'd taught Naruto the proper shadow clone jutsu, correcting the flaws in Naruto's improvised version and explaining the proper application. If you're going to use a dangerous technique, the third had said wryly, you might as well use it correctly. Now, on the morning of team assignments, Naruto sat in his apartment surrounded by shadow clones, each engaged in different tasks. Two were reading advanced chakra theory texts, one was practicing hand seals in front of a mirror, another was working through tactical scenario scrolls, and a fifth was meditating in the corner, focusing on chakra control exercises. The original Naruto sat cross-legged on his bed, eyes closed, receiving and processing the memories as each clone completed its task and dispelled itself. Efficient, he murmured, absorbing information that would have taken days to learn conventionally. Though the memory transfer creates some dissonance, he dispelled the remaining clones simultaneously, wincing slightly at the influx of memories and experiences. Then he rose and prepared for the day, selecting his standard black attire and carefully arranging his equipment pouches. The Hittite gleamed on his forehead, still new enough to feel slightly foreign. The academy classroom buzzed with excitement when he arrived. Former students, now genin, gathered in chattering groups, comparing headbands and speculating about Jonin senseis. Naruto slipped into his usual seat beside Shikamaru, who acknowledged him with a lazy nod. Troublesome morning, Shikamaru muttered. My mother woke me early for a special graduation breakfast that turned into a lecture about taking my shinobi duties seriously. Naruto's lips quirked slightly. Parental expectations can be burdensome. Shikamaru shot him a sharp look, seeming to realize belatedly that Naruto had no parents to burden him with expectations, or anything else. Sorry, Naruto shrugged minutely. No offense taken. Their conversation halted as Sasuke entered, immediately swarmed by his usual contingent of admirers. The Uchiha ignored them all, taking his seat with the same distant expression he always wore. His dark eyes briefly met Naruto's across the room, an assessing glance that held neither hostility nor acknowledgement. Shortly after, Iruka entered, carrying a clipboard and wearing an expression that mixed pride with something like nostalgia. Settle down, everyone, he called, waiting for the chatter to subside. Today you begin your journeys as true shinobi of Konoha. You will be divided into 3-person teams, each led by a Jonin sensei who will guide your development and lead your missions. Naruto listened attentively as Iruka began reading team assignments, mentally noting the combinations and analyzing the apparent criteria. Some teams were clearly specialized, Ino Shikacho continuing the traditional formation of their parents' generation. Others seemed balanced for general mission capabilities. Team 7, Iruka announced, will consist of Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke. A squeal of delight from Sakura and groans of disappointment from other Sasuke admirers punctuated the announcement. And Uzumaki Naruto. Your Jonin sensei will be Hatake Kakashi. Naruto's eyes narrowed fractionally. The composition wasn't surprising. The highest scoring kunoichi, the rookie of the year, and himself, who despite excellent written scores had been ranked near the bottom in practical demonstrations. A standard balanced team on paper, but the sensei assignment. Hatake Kakashi, former ANBU captain, student of the 4th Hokage, possessor of a Sharingan despite not being an Uchiha, a shinobi surrounded by as many rumors as facts. Interesting choice, Naruto murmured. Shikamaru, who had been assigned to Team 10 with Ino and Choji under Asuma Sarutobi, raised an eyebrow. You know something about Hatake? Only what's publicly available, Naruto replied. Which suggests there's much more that isn't. After Iruka finished the team assignments, he instructed them to take a lunch break before returning to meet their senseis. As the room emptied, Naruto remained seated, observing as Sakura approached Sasuke with an invitation to eat together, an invitation promptly rejected. Sakura's shoulders slumped as she watched Sasuke leave alone. Then, seemingly remembering her other teammate, she glanced toward Naruto with uncertainty. We're going to be on the same team, she said, approaching his desk with visible hesitation. Naruto inclined his head. So it seems. An awkward silence stretched between them. Sakura had never been openly hostile toward him like some students, but neither had they spoken much. She fidgeted with the hem of her red dress, the sunlight streaming through the classroom windows catching in her pink hair as she shifted her weight. "I suppose we should try to get along," she ventured, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. "Since we'll be working together and all." Naruto studied her for a moment, taking in the intelligence behind those green eyes, intelligence often overshadowed by her infatuation with Sasuke. "That would be logical," he agreed, rising from his seat with fluid grace. "A team functions best when its members understand each other's capabilities and tendencies." Sakura blinked, clearly not expecting such a formal response. "Right, so do you want to have lunch together?" "To start understanding, I mean. I accept your invitation," Naruto said, the ghost of a smile flickering across his face. "Though I suspect your primary motivation was to dine with Sasuke." A blush bloomed across Sakura's cheeks. "That's not, I didn't. Your reaction to the team assignments made your preferences clear," Naruto observed, no judgment in his tone. "It's a reasonable strategic approach to foster team cohesion through social interaction." Sakura stared at him, her mouth slightly open. "Do you always talk like that? Like you're analyzing a mission report?" Naruto considered the question as they walked toward the academy exit. "Language is a tool," he said finally. "I use it precisely." "Well, it's different," Sakura decided, shooting him a sideways glance. "Not bad different. Just not what I expected." They emerged into the bright midday sun, the academy courtyard bustling with new genin and their families. Naruto scanned the crowd automatically, tracking movement patterns and noting intersections of social groups. "Where would you like to eat?" he asked. Sakura hesitated, her eyes darting across the street where Sasuke had just disappeared around a corner. "Maybe we could follow Sasuke?" Naruto finished for her, arching an eyebrow. She had the grace to look embarrassed. "I was going to say get some onigiri from that shop down the street, which happens to be in the direction Sasuke went," Naruto pointed out, the corner of his mouth quirking upward. Sakura huffed, crossing her arms. "Fine. Yes, I want to find Sasuke. We're all supposed to be a team, right? That includes him. Your logic is sound, if your motivations are mixed," Naruto conceded with a slight nod. "Lead the way." They trailed after Sasuke, Sakura trying, and failing, to appear casual about it. The Uchiha had taken a seat on a stone bench in a small park, a bento box open beside him. His dark eyes flicked toward them as they approached, narrowing with mild irritation. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice cool and flat. Sakura's confidence visibly wavered. We thought maybe we could have lunch together. Since we're going to be on the same team and everything." Sasuke's gaze shifted to Naruto. "Your idea?" "Sakura's," Naruto corrected, meeting the Uchiha's stare evenly. "Though it has merit. Familiarization with teammates improves mission performance." Something flickered in Sasuke's eyes, a flash of grudging respect, perhaps, at Naruto's straightforward practicality. "Fine," he muttered, sliding over slightly on the bench. "Just don't talk too much." Sakura's face lit up as she hurried to sit beside Sasuke, while Naruto settled on his other side, unwrapping the simple onigiri he'd brought from home. For several minutes, they ate in silence, the awkwardness almost palpable in the air between them. "So," Sakura finally ventured, "what do you think our sensei will be like?" "Hatake Kakashi, wasn't it? He's late," Sasuke said flatly. Naruto and Sakura both looked at him in confusion. "For everything," Sasuke elaborated with a scowl. My brother mentioned him once. Said he's always hours behind schedule." Naruto filed away this rare mention of Sasuke's murdered family. "Correct. Hatake is notorious for his tardiness. He's also a former ANBU captain, possesses a Sharingan eye, and was the student of the 4th Hokage." Both his teammates turned to stare at him. "How do you know all that?" Sasuke demanded, a new edge of interest in his voice. Naruto shrugged one shoulder. "Information has value. I collect it." "About our teacher?" Sakura asked. "About everyone." Naruto took another bite of rice, chewing methodically. "For instance, Sakura has the highest written test scores in our class, exceptional chakra control, but below average stamina. Sasuke excels in ninjutsu and taijutsu, possesses fire nature chakra unusual for his age, but tends to overcommit to offensive maneuvers at the expense of defensive positioning. Sasuke's eyes narrowed dangerously. You've been watching me. I've been watching everyone, Naruto corrected calmly. It's prudent. What about yourself? Sakura challenged, her curiosity piqued. What would your assessment say? Naruto considered the question, his blue eyes distant. Exceptional chakra reserves, advanced theoretical knowledge, adaptable tactical thinking. Weaknesses include sometimes overthinking situations and… He paused, choosing his words carefully. Certain social limitations, Sasuke snorted. That's putting it mildly. Instead of taking offense, Naruto simply nodded. Self-awareness is essential for improvement. A strange silence fell over the three of them, not quite comfortable, but no longer entirely awkward. They were sizing each other up, recalibrating preconceptions. Sakura's gaze kept darting between the two boys, her expression thoughtful. Sasuke had stopped scowling, his face settling into its usual impassive mask, though his posture had relaxed almost imperceptibly. Naruto simply observed, mentally calculating the probability of effective teamwork given their disparate personalities and motivations. We should head back, Sakura said eventually, glancing at the position of the sun. The Jonin senseis will be arriving soon. They gathered their lunch items and walked back to the academy in a silence that had shifted subtly towards something approaching companionable. As they entered the classroom, other teams were already gathering, nervous energy filling the room as Jonin began to arrive. One by one, the senseis collected their teams, Kurina Yuhi for Team 8, Asuma Sarutobi for Team 10, and others Naruto recognized from his information gathering. Soon, the classroom emptied until only Team 7 remained, waiting for their perpetually tardy sensei. Minutes stretched into an hour. Then too, Sakura paced near the windows, her initial patience long exhausted. Where is he? Everyone else left ages ago. Even Iruka-sensei went home. Sasuke leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his irritation evident only in the slight tightening of his jaw. Naruto sat at a desk, a small notebook open before him, making occasional notes as he observed his teammates' reactions to the waiting game. This is likely deliberate, Naruto remarked, not looking up from his writing. A test of sorts. Sakura paused in her pacing. A test? But we already passed the graduation exam. Becoming a genin is a two-stage process, Naruto explained, closing his notebook. The academy exam determines those with basic competency. Jonin senseis then conduct their own evaluations to determine which teams they will actually accept for training. What? Sakura's voice rose in pitch. You mean we might not really be genin yet? Sasuke pushed off from the wall, his interest visibly piqued. How do you know this? Analysis of historical team formations and genin advancement rates, Naruto replied. Approximately 66% of academy graduates are returned to the program or channeled into the genin core rather than advancing to full team placement. Sakura's face paled. 2/3 fail? Why doesn't anyone tell us this? To prevent panic and allow for genuine personality assessment, Naruto said matter-of-factly. Our current situation is almost certainly part of that evaluation. Sasuke's eyes narrowed in thought. So he's watching us right now, testing our patience, among other things, Naruto agreed. Our interactions, problem-solving approaches, stress responses, all valuable data for determining team viability. As if on cue, the classroom door slid open, revealing a tall, lanky man with gravity-defying silver hair, most of his face concealed behind a mask and his tight. Only a single, half-lidded eye was visible, regarding them with apparent boredom. Team 7? The man drawled. My first impression is, you're dull. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. With that, he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Sakura bristled. Dull? We've been waiting for hours, and he has the nerve to. Another test, Naruto interjected, already moving toward the door. Provoking emotional responses to assess temperament, Sasuke grunted in what might have been agreement, following close behind. Sakura hurried after them, muttering under her breath about inconsiderate senseis. They reached the roof with a minute to spare, finding Kakashi leaning casually against the railing. an orange book held open before his face. He didn't look up as they arranged themselves on the steps across from him. "Well now," he said finally, closing his book with deliberate slowness. "Why don't we introduce ourselves? Likes, dislikes, dreams for the future, that sort of thing. Maybe you should go first, sensei," Sakura suggested, a hint of challenge in her voice. "To show us how it's done." Kakashi's visible eye curved in what might have been a smile. "I'm Hatake Kakashi. Things I like and things I hate. I don't feel like telling you that. My dreams for the future, never really thought about it. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies." Naruto noted the deliberate information vacuum, another test, forcing them to reveal themselves while learning nothing in return. "Your turn," Kakashi said, pointing to Sakura. "Pinky first." Sakura frowned at the nickname but straightened her shoulders. "I'm Haruno Sakura. I like." She glanced at Sasuke and blushed. Certain people. I dislike people who are late and don't take things seriously." This with a pointed look at Kakashi. "My dream is to become a strong kunoichi and..." Another glance at Sasuke, her blush deepening. "Hobbies?" Kakashi prompted. "Reading and memorization exercises," she said, some confidence returning to her voice. "I have perfect recall for text." "Interesting," Kakashi murmured, his gaze shifting to Sasuke. "Broody one, you're next." Sasuke's expression darkened at the nickname. "Uchiha Sasuke. I don't particularly like anything. I dislike many things. What I have isn't a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan and kill a certain man." A heavy silence followed his declaration. Kakashi's eye revealed nothing of his thoughts as he turned to Naruto. "And finally, the quiet one." Naruto met the Jonin's gaze steadily. "Uzumaki Naruto. I like acquiring knowledge and developing skills. I dislike inefficiency and squandered potential. My hobbies include theoretical analysis and strategic planning. My dream," he paused, his blue eyes taking on a distant quality, "is to become someone whose strength brings peace rather than conflict." Something flickered in Kakashi's visible eye, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. For a brief moment, the bored facade slipped, revealing a sharper attention beneath. "Well," Kakashi said after a moment, his casual tone returning, "you're all unique, I'll give you that. Now, let's get down to business. Tomorrow we'll have our first mission together." "What kind of mission?" Sakura asked eagerly. "Survival exercise," Kakashi answered, his eye crinkling with apparent amusement. "But we did survival exercises at the academy," Sakura protested. "Not like this," Kakashi assured her, a dark undertone entering his voice. "This is the real test that determines if you actually become genin or get sent back to the academy." Sasuke tensed visibly, while Sakura gasped. Naruto merely nodded, his earlier analysis confirmed. "But we already passed the graduation exam," Sakura objected. Kakashi chuckled, the sound devoid of warmth. "That was just to select candidates who might become genin. Out of the 27 graduates, only 9 will actually be accepted as genin. The other 18 will be sent back to the academy. In other words, this is a make it or break it, pass-fail test, and the chance of failure is at least 66%. Sakura paled, Sasuke's hands clenched into fists, and Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly, the only visible reaction to information he'd already deduced. "Meet at Training Ground 7 at 5 a.m. Kakashi continued, clearly enjoying their discomfort. "Bring your ninja gear. Oh, and don't eat breakfast, or you'll throw up." He stood, forming a hand seal. Dismissed. With another swirl of leaves, he vanished, leaving the 3 genin alone on the rooftop. "He's testing us again," Naruto said immediately, rising to his feet. "The breakfast warning is likely a ploy to weaken our performance," Sasuke frowned. "You think he's lying about the test? Not about its existence, but about its nature," Naruto clarified. "Everything he's done so far has been calculated to create specific psychological impacts. The tardiness to test patience, the minimal self-introduction to create information asymmetry, the warning about failure rates to induce stress. So what does the breakfast warning do?" Sakura asked, her analytical mind engaging with the puzzle. "Compromises physical capabilities and decision-making through low blood sugar," Naruto explained. Plus, it tests our willingness to follow orders without question. Sasuke's eyes gleamed with newfound respect. So we should eat. Absolutely. Naruto confirmed. And we should consider what kind of test would evaluate 3 genin against a jonin. Sakura tapped her chin thoughtfully. If he's testing us individually, none of us stand a chance against someone of his caliber. Indeed, Naruto agreed, a faint smile touching his lips. Which suggests he's not testing us individually. Understanding dawned on Sasuke's face. He's testing us as a team. Most probable hypothesis. Naruto nodded. Konoha's operational doctrine emphasizes teamwork above individual excellence. The 3 genin exchange looks, something new forming between them, the first fragile tendrils of actual teamwork. We should coordinate, Sasuke said, surprising both his teammates with the suggestion. Plan counter-strategies. My apartment is closest to the training ground, Naruto offered. We could meet there at 4 a.m., eat a proper meal, and arrive together. Sasuke nodded curtly, while Sakura's eyes widened at this unexpected development. I'll bring rice balls, she volunteered, finding her voice. My mother makes them with pickled plum. I'll provide tactical analysis materials, Naruto said. And I have information on Hataki's known capabilities that may prove useful. I'll bring tomatoes, Sasuke muttered, earning surprised looks. What? I like tomatoes. A ghost of a smile touched Naruto's face. Then it's settled. Tomorrow at 4 a.m., we begin our counter-strategy. As they descended from the roof and went their separate ways, Naruto couldn't help but feel that something significant had shifted. For the first time in his carefully calculated life, he was forming actual connections, not the strategic relationships he'd cultivated for information gathering, but something more authentic. It was unexpected and surprisingly satisfying. Hidden in the foliage of a nearby tree, Kakashi lowered his binoculars, his visible eye narrowed in thought. Well, he murmured to himself. That was not what I expected. His gaze lingered on Naruto's retreating form. Particularly from you, Sensei's son. A soft knock echoed through Naruto's apartment at precisely 4 a.m. He opened the door to find Sakura and Sasuke standing in the pre-dawn darkness, both looking slightly uncertain about being at his home. Come in, Naruto said, stepping aside to reveal a meticulously organized living space. His visitors hesitated at the threshold, taking in the surroundings with obvious curiosity. The apartment was small but immaculate, with bookshelves lining one wall, filled with texts on shinobi arts, history, and strategy. A table near the window was covered with neat stacks of scrolls and notebooks. The only decoration was a carefully maintained plant beside the window and a map of the elemental nations on the opposite wall, marked with colored pins and threads connecting various locations. It's very tidy, Sakura commented, stepping inside with her bundle of rice balls. Sasuke followed silently, his dark eyes scanning everything with keen interest. He placed a small container of sliced tomatoes on the kitchen counter. I've prepared tea and miso soup, Naruto informed them, gesturing to the kitchenette where a steaming pot and teapot waited. Protein and complex carbohydrates are optimal for sustained energy. You really think Kakashi-sensei was trying to sabotage us with that no breakfast instruction? Sakura asked, arranging her rice balls on a plate. Without question, Naruto replied, pouring 3 cups of tea with precise movements. A hungry shinobi is a compromised shinobi. Sasuke accepted his tea with a nod. What did you find out about him? Naruto moved to the table, unrolling a scroll covered in his neat handwriting. Hatake Kakashi, age 26. Became Genin at age 5, Chunin at 6. Jonin by 13. Former ABU captain, now elite Jonin. Specializes in assassination and tracking. Known as Copy Ninja Kakashi for reportedly mastering over 1,000 jutsu using his Sharingan eye. Obtained under unknown circumstances during the Third Shinobi War. Sakura nearly choked on her tea. He became a Chunin at 6? That's impossible. Different era. Sasuke muttered, his expression darkening. During wartime, promotions were accelerated. Naruto nodded. Correct. His advancement was exceptional even then, but the war created unique circumstances. More relevant to our situation, he has never passed a Genin team. Ever. What? Sakura's eyes widened. Then why assign him students at all? Political considerations, most likely, Naruto said, sipping his tea. His skills are too valuable to waste exclusively on solo missions, yet his psychological profile suggests difficulty with sustained teamwork relationships. Sasuke frowned. How do you know his psychological profile? A ghost of a smile touched Naruto's lips. I don't. That's conjecture based on observable behavior patterns and public records. So what's his test going to be? Sakura asked, picking up a rice ball. Naruto unrolled another scroll, this one showing a diagram of Training Ground 7. Based on his background and Konoha's typical Jonin evaluation methods, we can narrow the possibilities to 3 primary scenarios. He pointed to different areas of the diagram as he spoke. Scenario 1, Combat Assessment. He pits us against each other or himself to gauge individual capabilities. Scenario 2, Mission Simulation. He creates a task we must complete under adverse conditions. Scenario 3, Team Cohesion Test. He manufactures a situation that places our individual goals in apparent conflict with team success. Which do you think it will be? Sasuke asked, leaning forward with obvious interest. Naruto's blue eyes met his. The third. Every piece of psychological manipulation he's employed so far has been designed to emphasize our separation rather than unity, the late arrival making us irritable with each other. Sakura realized. The warnings about failure rates to make us see each other as competition. Precisely. Naruto confirmed. Kakashi has created an environment of stress and competition. The logical next step is to offer a scenario where teamwork appears disadvantageous to individual success. Sasuke reached for a tomato slice, his expression thoughtful. So whatever the test seems to be, the real objective is working together. That's my assessment. Naruto agreed. And given that Kakashi possesses vastly superior skills, it's also our only viable strategy for success. As they ate, they continued to discuss Naruto's analysis, developing contingency plans and communication signals. The sun was just beginning to lighten the eastern sky when they finished their meal and gathered their equipment. One final consideration, Naruto said as they prepared to leave. Regardless of the specific test format, Kakashi will be observing our problem-solving approach as much as our physical capabilities. We should demonstrate adaptability rather than rigid adherence to any single strategy. Sasuke nodded curtly. Understood. This is actually kind of exciting, Sakura admitted, adjusting her weapons pouch. Planning together like real shinobi. Naruto glanced at her, a flicker of something almost like warmth in his usually calculating eyes. We are real shinobi, Sakura. Or we will be by the end of today. They left the apartment and made their way through the awakening village, a sense of purpose and unity binding them that hadn't existed the day before. Training Ground 7 was silent and mist-shrouded when they arrived at 4:55 a.m. 3 wooden posts stood in the center of the clearing, surrounded by open grassland that transitioned to thick forest at the perimeter. A small stream cut through one side of the training area, disappearing into the trees. He's not here yet, Sakura observed, shivering slightly in the dawn chill. As expected, Naruto replied, scanning the tree line. His pattern suggests he'll be at least 2 hours late, so we wait, Sasuke said, settling against one of the posts. Naruto shook his head. We use the time. I suggest we split up and scout the training ground thoroughly. Map terrain features, identified potential ambush locations, note available resources. His teammates nodded, and they divided the area into sectors. For the next hour, they methodically explored the training ground, reconvening regularly to share discoveries and update their mental maps. When they finally regrouped at the posts, they had a comprehensive understanding of their battleground. The sun had fully risen by the time Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves, his single visible eye curved in what might have been a smile. Good morning, he said cheerfully, as if he weren't hours late. Good morning, Kakashi-sensei. They replied in unison, having agreed not to comment on his tardiness. If their lack of complaints surprised him, he didn't show it. Instead, he placed an alarm clock on one of the posts and pulled 2 small bells from his pocket, dangling them so they jingled softly. Today's test is simple, he explained, his voice deceptively casual. You need to take these bells from me before noon. Whoever doesn't get a bell fails and goes back to the academy. Sakura's brow furrowed. But sensei, there are only 2 bells. How observant, Kakashi said dryly. Yes, that means at least one of you will definitely fail. His eye crinkled with apparent amusement. Come at me with the intent to kill, or you won't stand a chance. Naruto caught Sasuke's eye, a silent communication passing between them. Their suspicions were confirmed. The test was designed to pit them against each other. The bells were a distraction from the real objective, teamwork. When I say start, you can begin, Kakashi continued, tying the bells to his waist. He pulled out his orange book, affecting disinterest. Ready? Start! Sasuke and Sakura immediately leapt back, disappearing into the foliage as they'd planned. Naruto, however, remained standing before Kakashi, his posture relaxed but alert. Aren't you going to hide like your teammates? Kakashi asked without looking up from his book. That would be the conventional approach, Naruto acknowledged. But I prefer to begin with an assessment. Kakashi's visible eye flicked up from his page. Oh? And what have you assessed so far? That you're setting us up to fail, Naruto stated matter-of-factly. This test creates artificial scarcity to encourage competition rather than cooperation. Since you're a Jonin with decades of combat experience, no genin could take those bells individually, making teamwork the only logical approach. Yet the bell structure incentivizes us to work against each other rather than together. Kakashi's eye widened fractionally, the first genuine reaction Naruto had observed from him. That's an interesting theory. It's not a theory, Naruto replied, his blue eyes unwavering. It's an obvious conclusion for anyone who analyzes the situation objectively. Kakashi snapped his book shut. If it's so obvious, why did you stay to tell me you've figured it out? That seems counterproductive. A ghost of a smile touched Naruto's lips. Misdirection, of course. At that moment, a barrage of shuriken flew from the trees to Kakashi's left, Sasuke's position. As the Jonin moved to evade, Sakura emerged from the right, hurling a smoke bomb that exploded at Kakashi's feet. The 3 genin had timed their coordinated attack perfectly, using Naruto's conversation as a distraction. Naruto darted forward through the smoke, aiming not for the bells but for Kakashi's book. His fingers brushed the orange cover before the Jonin twisted away with surprising speed, only to find Sasuke already there, launching a spinning kick toward his head. Kakashi blocked the kick with one hand, his visible eye now fully focused on the fight. Working together already? Interesting strategy. The only viable one. Sasuke grunted, using the blocked kick to launch himself into a flip, throwing more shuriken as he spun. Kakashi deflected the projectiles, only to find Sakura beneath him, her hands reaching for the bells. He leapt upward to avoid her, directly into the path of Naruto's waiting attack, a precisely aimed palm strike that Kakashi barely managed to redirect. For several minutes, the 3 genin coordinated their attacks with surprising effectiveness, forcing Kakashi to defend from multiple angles simultaneously. He didn't use his book again, and though his movements remained controlled, there was a new intensity to his defense. Fall back, Naruto called suddenly, and his teammates instantly disengaged, disappearing into the trees once more. Kakashi straightened, brushing dust from his jacket. Not bad for fresh academy graduates, he admitted. But you didn't get the bells. That wasn't the objective of that exchange. Naruto's voice called from somewhere in the foliage. Oh? Then what was? Data collection, came the calm reply. Kakashi's eye narrowed as he scanned the surroundings, his posture shifting subtly into a more alert stance. The genin had demonstrated far more coordination than he'd expected, especially given their personalities. Most interesting was Naruto, whose analytical approach bore an eerie resemblance to Minato's, yet with a colder, more calculating edge that his father had never possessed. The next attack came from below. The ground beneath Kakashi cracked as Sakura's fist connected with it, a surprising display of chakra-enhanced strength that forced him to leap away. Sasuke was waiting, his hands already forming seals. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. A massive sphere of flame erupted from Sasuke's mouth, forcing Kakashi to substitute himself with a nearby log. As the log burst into flames, Kakashi reappeared near the stream, exactly where Naruto had predicted he would. 3 shadow clones were waiting, engaging him instantly in coordinated taijutsu while the real Naruto watched from concealment, analyzing patterns and weaknesses. The morning continued this way, the genin launching coordinated attacks, retreating to regroup, then attacking again with adjusted strategies. They never went for the bells individually, always working in concert. Each engagement lasted longer than the previous one as they refined their approach based on Naruto's observations. By 11:30, Kakashi was beginning to feel the strain of constant vigilance. These weren't typical genin. They fought like a team that had trained together for months, not hours. Particularly troubling was their communication. They seemed to have developed hand signals and code words that allowed them to coordinate without speaking directly. When they disappeared for yet another regrouping, Kakashi decided to change tactics. He created a shadow clone and sent it in pursuit of Sakura, while he himself tracked Sasuke. If he separated them, perhaps their coordination would falter. His clone cornered Sakura near the forest edge. She stood her ground, kunai drawn, her green eyes determined despite her obvious fatigue. "Skilled as you three are working together," the clone said. "Only two can pass. Why fight for teammates who might take the bells for themselves?" Sakura's eyes narrowed. "Because we've decided the bells aren't the real objective." "Oh? And what is?" "Proving we understand what makes Konoha Shinobi different from other villages," she replied, her stance unwavering. Meanwhile, the real Kakashi had found Sasuke perched in a tree, catching his breath. "Your teammates might betray you for those bells," he remarked casually. "Especially Naruto. He's been calculating angles all morning." Sasuke's dark eyes flashed with annoyance. "You really don't understand anything about him, do you? Naruto calculates everything, including the value of reliable teammates. Is that what you are to each other now? After one morning, we're becoming what we need to be," Sasuke replied cryptically, before suddenly dropping smoke bombs that obscured the entire area. When Kakashi's clone dispersed, returning its memories to him, he realized his mistake. Neither Sakura nor Sasuke had been trying to win their encounters. They'd been stalling, keeping his attention divided while Naruto implemented whatever plan they'd developed. The alarm clock at the center of the training ground began to ring, signaling noon. When Kakashi returned to the posts, he found all three genin waiting, looking tired but strangely satisfied despite their apparent failure. "Time's up," Kakashi announced, silencing the clock. "None of you got a bell." "True," Naruto acknowledged, his posture relaxed. "But that wasn't the real test." Kakashi crossed his arms. "Oh? And what was the real test, in your estimation?" "Recognizing that Konoha's strength comes from teamwork rather than individual prowess," Naruto stated. "The bells were a misdirection to see if we would sacrifice each other for personal gain." "An interesting theory," Kakashi said, echoing his earlier words. "But if that's true, why didn't you just tell me that was your conclusion instead of fighting all morning?" A rare, genuine smile spread across Naruto's face. "Because understanding a principle intellectually is different from demonstrating it practically. We needed to prove we could apply the concept under pressure, not just recognize it in theory." Sasuke stepped forward. "We decided that either all of us would pass, or none of us would." "We're a team," Sakura added firmly. "Even if it means going back to the academy, we go together." Kakashi studied the three genin before him, the last Uchiha, the brilliant Kunoichi, and the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, standing united despite their differences. Something unexpected tightened in his chest. "Well then," he said slowly, his eye crinkling, "I have no choice but to inform you that you've all passed." Sakura's face lit up with joy, while Sasuke permitted himself a satisfied smirk. Naruto simply nodded, as if the outcome had been inevitable in his calculations. "You're the first team that ever understood the purpose of this test," Kakashi continued, a new warmth in his voice. "Everyone else just blindly followed my instructions, competing against each other. A shinobi must see underneath the underneath. Those who break the rules are trash," Naruto quoted quietly. "But those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash." Kakashi went very still. "Where did you hear that?" "Historical accounts of the Third Shinobi War," Naruto replied smoothly. "Attributed to an Uchiha named Obito, your former teammate." Something like pain flashed across Kakashi's visible eye, there and gone in an instant. "You really do your research, don't you?" Knowledge is survival, Naruto said simply. Kakashi studied him for a long moment, seeing echoes of Minato in those calculating blue eyes, yet with a precision and detachment that made him wonder what the fourth would think of how his son had developed. Starting tomorrow, Kakashi announced, straightening up with newfound purpose. Team 7 begins its official duties. The sun blazed overhead, casting their 3 shadows long across the training ground as they stood together for the first time as true genin of Konoha. The scent of fresh paint filled the air as Naruto applied methodical strokes to the fence before him. The motion was repetitive, almost meditative, giving his mind freedom to work on more complex problems while his body completed the mundane task. 3 weeks had passed since Team 7's formation. 3 weeks of what Kakashi euphemistically called skill-building missions, and what Sasuke more accurately termed glorified chores. Today's mission, their 4th fence painting assignment, epitomized the tedium they'd been enduring. "This is ridiculous," Sasuke muttered from a few feet away, his brush slashing at the wood with barely contained frustration. "We're shinobi, not laborers." Sakura paused in her work, wiping a smudge of white paint from her cheek. "It's part of the process, Sasuke-kun. All genin start with D-rank missions. Tell that to my brother," Sasuke growled. "He was completing B ranks at our age, different era," Naruto observed without breaking his rhythm. "Wartime necessity accelerated advancement. Current peace allows for more structured development." A flash of silver caught Naruto's peripheral vision as Kakashi appeared behind them, his orange book in hand as usual. "Discussing career advancement, are we?" "Discussing mission quality," Sasuke corrected, his dark eyes narrowing. "We've been genin for almost a month without facing a single combat situation." Kakashi's visible eye remained fixed on his book. "Combat isn't the only measure of a shinobi's growth, but it is a necessary component," Naruto interjected, his brush making one final, perfect stroke before he set it aside. "Our current mission structure emphasizes teamwork and discipline but neglects practical field experience. The optimal development path would include both." Kakashi lowered his book fractionally, studying his blonde student with new interest. "You think you're ready for something more challenging? We've completed 23 D-rank missions with a 100% success rate and 0 interpersonal conflicts," Naruto replied, his voice calm but firm. "Statistically, we're outperforming every rookie team in efficiency metrics." "Yes, we're ready." A tense silence followed as Kakashi seemed to weigh his options. Finally, he snapped his book shut with a dramatic sigh. "Finish this fence by noon, and I'll speak with the Hokage about a potential C rank." Sakura's face lit up with excitement. "Really, sensei? Don't get too excited," Kakashi warned, his eye crinkling with amusement. "A C rank might just mean escorting merchants to the next town or delivering sensitive documents. Not exactly high adventure. It would still provide valuable experience beyond village boundaries," Naruto pointed out, already picking up his brush to continue working. Sasuke grunted in agreement, his pace noticeably quickening. Beside him, Sakura redoubled her efforts, determination written across her features. Kakashi watched them for a moment before disappearing in a swirl of leaves, presumably to keep his promise. By 11:30, the fence gleamed with fresh white paint, not a single spot missed or drip visible. The 3 genin stood back, examining their work with varying degrees of satisfaction. "Acceptable," Naruto declared, already packing away his supplies with meticulous care. "Let's report to the mission desk," Sasuke said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I want to be there when Kakashi speaks to the Hokage." They made their way through Konoha's bustling streets toward the administration building, the midday sun beating down on their shoulders. The village hummed with ordinary life, merchants hawking wares, children racing through alleys, off-duty shinobi lounging at tea houses. Naruto cataloged it all with practiced awareness, noting patterns and anomalies as he always did. A flash of movement on a nearby rooftop caught his attention, an ANBU operative moving with urgent purpose toward the Hokage tower. Then another, following the same path. "Something's happening," he murmured to his teammates, his eyes tracking the operatives until they disappeared from view. Sasuke followed his gaze, frowning slightly. "ANBU deployment within the village is unusual. Maybe it's nothing," Sakura suggested, though her voice held doubt. "Training exercise?" Possible, but improbable given the movement patterns, Naruto replied. They're maintaining stealth protocols even within village boundaries. They quicken their pace, curiosity adding urgency to their steps. When they reached the mission desk, they found the room buzzing with unusual activity. Several jonin stood in a corner, voices lowered in serious conversation. The chunin handlers seemed tense, exchanging meaningful glances as they processed completed mission scrolls. Iruka looked up from the desk as they approached, surprise flickering across his scarred face. Team 7? I didn't expect you to finish so quickly. We're efficient, Sasuke stated flatly, handing over their mission scroll. Iruka stamped the scroll with the completion mark, his movements distracted. Kakashi isn't with you? He said he'd meet us here to discuss a potential C-rank mission, Sakura explained, her green eyes darting to the unusually active room. Is something going on, Iruka-sensei? Iruka's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Nothing for Genin to worry about. Just some administrative matters. Naruto's eyes narrowed at the obvious deflection. Before he could probe further, the door swung open, and Kakashi strolled in, projecting his usual air of casual indifference despite the tension in the room. Mission complete already? I'm impressed, he drawled, though his visible eye scanned the room with subtle sharpness that belied his relaxed posture. We worked efficiently, Naruto replied, studying his sensei's body language. You spoke with the Hokage? I did, Kakashi confirmed, his voice deliberately light. And it seems you're in luck. There's a C-rank escort mission available that might suit our team. Iruka straightened in his chair, a frown creasing his brow. Kakashi-san, given the current situation, is it wise to? The Hokage has approved it. Kakashi cut in smoothly. The mission parameters fall well within acceptable risk levels for Genin. An unspoken communication seemed to pass between the two shinobi before Iruka reluctantly nodded, pulling a scroll from a separate compartment of his desk. The client is waiting in room 3, Iruka said, handing the scroll to Kakashi. A bridge builder from the Land of Waves requesting escort protection back to his country. Excitement flickered across Sakura's face, while Sasuke permitted himself a satisfied smirk. Naruto, however, was more interested in the subtle tension between the adults. What is the current situation Iruka-sensei referenced? He asked directly. A brief silence followed his question. Kakashi sighed, tucking the mission scroll into his vest pocket. Perceptive as always, Naruto, he remarked. There's been a security matter requiring ANBU attention. Nothing that affects your mission. What kind of security matter? Sasuke pressed, his dark eyes narrowing. Kakashi's expression grew more serious. The kind that Genin don't need to concern themselves with. Now, would you like to meet your first C-rank client, or would you prefer to continue painting fences? The deflection was obvious, but effective. All three Genin instantly focused on the prospect of their first real mission outside the village. Lead the way, sensei, Sakura said eagerly. As they followed Kakashi down the hallway, Naruto's mind worked through possibilities. ANBU mobilization, tension among the Jonin, Iruka's concern about sending Genin outside the village, all pointed to some security threat, either from within or without. He filed away the information for later consideration. Room 3 was a small reception area with a single window overlooking the village square. Seated in one of the chairs was an elderly man with a weathered face and a gray beard, a straw hat resting on his knee. The scent of alcohol hung about him like a cloud, and the bottle in his hand suggested he'd been drinking steadily. These are my bodyguards? The old man demanded incredulously as they entered. A bunch of snot-nosed kids? Especially that short one with the stupid look on his face. Naruto's expression remained perfectly neutral despite the insult. A quick glance at his teammates showed Sakura's indignation and Sasuke's cool disdain. I assure you, Tazuna-san, my team is more than capable of handling the escort mission to the Land of Waves, Kakashi said smoothly. I am a Jonin, and these three Genin are skilled shinobi despite their youth. Tazuna snorted, taking another swig from his bottle. They don't look like they could protect me from a stray cat, let alone bandits. Appearances can be deceiving, Naruto observed quietly. Just as a master bridge builder might appear to be nothing more than a drunk old man. Tazuna's bloodshot eyes narrowed at him. Watch your mouth, kid. My student makes a valid point, Kakashi interjected. We are shinobi. Underestimating us would be unwise, as would those who might threaten you during our journey. Something flickered into Zuna's eyes, a flash of what might have been guilt or fear. Naruto caught it instantly, filing it away for analysis. We'll depart tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., Kakashi continued. Pack for a 2-week mission. The Land of Waves is several days' travel, and will remain until Tazuna-san completes the current phase of his bridge construction. A bridge? Sakura inquired politely, clearly trying to smooth over the tense introduction. What kind are you building? The kind that changes everything. Tazuna replied gruffly, his expression softening slightly. It will connect the Land of Waves to the mainland, breaking our isolation once and for all. Economic implications would be significant, Naruto noted. Island nations typically suffer from inflated import costs and limited export markets. A bridge would disrupt existing trade monopolies. Tazuna stared at him, surprise evident on his weathered face. That's exactly right. How does a kid your age understand economic infrastructure? I read, Naruto replied simply. Kakashi clapped his hands together. Well then, get some rest and prepare your equipment. Tomorrow begins your first real mission outside the village. As they left the administration building, Naruto hung back slightly, watching Tazuna through the window as the bridge builder slumped in his chair, taking another long drink from his bottle. The man's body language spoke volumes, tension in the shoulders, darting glances, the drinking itself a likely self-medication for anxiety. He's hiding something, Naruto murmured as Sasuke and Sakura walked ahead, already discussing what to pack. Kakashi appeared beside him, following his gaze. Oh? What makes you say that? Micro-expressions indicating deception when you mentioned threats. Excessive alcohol consumption suggesting anxiety management. Emotional reaction to the bridge's significance beyond professional pride. Naruto turned to his sensei, blue eyes sharp with assessment. This mission parameters may exceed C-rank classification. Kakashi studied him for a long moment. If that proves true, we'll reassess whether to continue or return to the village. Understood. Naruto nodded. I'll prepare accordingly. Just pack for a standard C-rank. Kakashi instructed, his tone casual but firm. I'll handle any unexpected developments. Naruto inclined his head in acknowledgement, though his mind was already calculating contingencies and optimal equipment loadouts for various scenarios. As he walked home to prepare, the earlier ANBU activity nagged at the edges of his thoughts. Two potentially significant events occurring simultaneously seemed improbable as mere coincidence. Something was stirring both within and beyond Konoha's walls. And for the first time, Team 7 would be stepping directly into it. Dawn barely brushed the horizon as Naruto approached Konoha's main gate, the village still cloaked in the hushed stillness of early morning. His backpack contained exactly what a genin on a standard C-rank mission might carry, plus several contingency scrolls and specialized equipment concealed in hidden compartments. The weight felt comfortable against his shoulders, a physical reminder of the journey ahead. Sakura already waited by the gate, stifling a yawn as she adjusted her pack. Her pink hair was tied back practically, and she'd exchanged her usual red dress for more durable traveling clothes. Morning, she greeted him, surprise evident in her voice. You're early, as are you, Naruto observed, setting his pack down beside hers. Excitement or anxiety? Both, I guess, she admitted with a small smile. First time leaving the village on official business. It feels significant, Naruto nodded, understanding perfectly. Despite all his planning and preparation, he too felt an unfamiliar flutter of anticipation. This mission represented a tangible step toward his goals, experience beyond Konoha's protective walls, practical application of skills honed through years of meticulous training. Sasuke arrived moments later, his expression inscrutable as always, though his eyes held a gleam of barely contained eagerness. He acknowledged them with a curt nod, positioning himself against the gatepost with studied nonchalance. To everyone's surprise, Kakashi appeared exactly on time, leading a rather haggard-looking Tazuna. The bridge builder's bloodshot eyes suggested he'd continued drinking well into the night. Excellent, you're all here, Kakashi said cheerfully. Before we depart, a quick review of formation and protocols. We'll maintain diamond formation with Tazuna-san at center. I'll take point, Sasuke rear guard, Naruto and Sakura on the flanks. Standard communication signals apply. Questions? Expected travel time? Naruto asked. 3 days to the coast, then a short boat journey to the land of waves, Kakashi replied. We'll maintain civilian pace for Tazuna-san's benefit, Tazuna grunted. I can keep up. Don't baby me. Very well then, Kakashi said, turning toward the open gates. Team 7, move out! They crossed the threshold from village to wilderness, the massive gates of Konoha receding behind them as they took their first steps as shinobi into the wider world. The road stretched before them, winding through the dense forests that surrounded the hidden leaf. For the first hour, they walked in relative silence, adjusting to the formation and rhythm of group travel. Gradually, Sakura began asking Tazuna questions about the Land of Waves and his bridge project, her natural curiosity overcoming the lingering awkwardness from yesterday's introduction. So why is this bridge so important? She inquired as they navigated a particularly scenic stretch of forest road. I mean, I understand the economic benefits Naruto mentioned, but you said it would change everything. Tazuna's weathered face darkened. The Land of Waves is a small island nation, blessed with natural beauty but little else. We've always survived through fishing and trade, but in recent years... He trailed off, taking a swig from his ever-present bottle. In recent years? Sakura prompted gently. A man came, Tazuna said, his voice dropping. A businessman named Gato. He took over all our shipping companies, creating a monopoly on transportation to and from the mainland. Now he bleeds us dry with excessive fees, controls what comes in and goes out. People are starving while he grows richer, and your bridge would break his control. Naruto concluded, pieces falling into place. Creating a land route that bypasses his shipping monopoly, Tazuna nodded grimly. That's why this bridge means everything. It's not just construction, it's liberation. Kakashi's posture shifted subtly, his casual demeanor giving way to increased vigilance. This Gato, he's not the type to simply allow you to threaten his business interests, I imagine. He's sent men to threaten workers, sabotage equipment, Tazuna admitted reluctantly. That's why I needed protection to return safely and complete the project. Naruto caught Kakashi's eye, a silent confirmation of his earlier suspicions. The mission parameters indeed seemed to exceed typical C-rank threats of highway bandits or wild animals. A wealthy businessman with the resources to control an entire nation's economy would have access to more dangerous deterrents. Sasuke had clearly reached the same conclusion. So we're not just protecting you from random bandits, he stated flatly. We're protecting you from Gato's men specifically. Tazuna looked away, guilt written plainly across his face now. The Land of Waves is poor. We couldn't afford the cost of a B-rank mission. Silence fell over the group as the implications settled. Kakashi's eye narrowed slightly, but before he could respond, Naruto's head snapped up, his senses suddenly alert. 2 chakra signatures, he murmured, voice low enough for only his teammates to hear. Concealed in the trees ahead. Chunin level, based on output. Kakashi gave an almost imperceptible nod, having detected the same presence. He continued walking, maintaining their pace while signaling the genin to be ready. Naruto's hand drifted casually toward his kunai pouch, while Sasuke and Sakura moved slightly closer to Tazuna. They passed a puddle on the road, conspicuous in its presence despite no rain having fallen for over a week. Naruto noted it without breaking stride, cataloging it as the likely concealment technique of their observers. 3 steps past the puddle, chaos erupted. 2 shinobi erupted from the water, connected by a vicious spike chain that whipped through the air toward Kakashi. The metal links wrapped around the jonin before anyone could react, constricting with lethal force. 1 down. One of the attackers growled as Kakashi's body appeared to shred into bloody pieces. Sakura screamed, while Tazuna stumbled backward in horror. But Naruto and Sasuke were already moving, their reactions instant and coordinated. Sasuke launched into the air, a shuriken and kunai flying from his hands with pinpoint accuracy. The weapons caught the attacker's chain, pinning it to a nearby tree. In the same moment, Naruto created 3 shadow clones that moved to surround Tazuna, while the original Naruto darted forward, engaging the first enemy with precise taijutsu. The attacker, a shinobi with a clawed gauntlet and a breathing mask, swiped at Naruto with poisoned metal claws. Naruto deflected the strike with a kunai, analyzing his opponent's movements with cold calculation. Miss Shinobi, missing nin classification, Naruto observed aloud, noting the slashed headbands. The demon brothers, Gozu and Meizu. Chunin level, specialized in coordinated attacks and poison techniques. How the hell? The ninja growled, clearly surprised by the young genin's knowledge. Naruto didn't bother explaining that he'd memorized the bingo book entries of all known missing nin within a 5-country radius. Instead, he created another shadow clone that attacked from the ninja's blind spot, forcing him to disengage from the chain that connected him to his brother. Simultaneously, Sasuke had engaged the second brother, his hands blurring through a sequence of seals. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. A barrage of small fireballs shot toward the enemy, who dodged with practiced agility but found himself backing directly into one of Naruto's waiting clones. The entire encounter lasted less than 30 seconds. When it ended, both demon brothers lay unconscious and bound against a tree, their weapons and equipment confiscated. Kakashi stepped out from the tree line, completely unharmed, his visible eye curved in a smile. Well done, all of you! Excellent teamwork and threat assessment. Substitution jutsu, Naruto noted, glancing at the pile of shredded wood where Kakashi had appeared to die. You wanted to see how we would react, and to determine the attacker's true target. Kakashi confirmed, his expression growing serious as he turned to Tazuna. Care to explain why missing nin from Kirigakure are targeting a simple bridge builder on what should be a straightforward C-rank escort mission? Tazuna slumped, the bluster and gruffness melting away to reveal a desperate old man. I couldn't tell you the whole truth. As I said, our country is poor. We couldn't afford the proper mission classification. This is at minimum a B-rank mission now, Kakashi said sternly. With the involvement of enemy shinobi, possibly higher. Protocol dictates we should return to the village and reassess. Tazuna's face crumpled. Then I'm a dead man walking. Without protection, Gato's men will kill me before I can complete the bridge, and the land of waves will remain under his boot forever. A tense silence followed his words. Kakashi turned to his team, his expression unreadable. This has become more dangerous than anticipated. As genin on your first mission outside the village, you're under no obligation to continue. What do you say? Naruto exchanged glances with his teammates, reading the determination in Sasuke's eyes and the resolve firming in Sakura's expression. He conducted a rapid risk assessment, weighing the danger against the potential combat experience and the humanitarian implications of Tazuna's project. I vote to continue, Naruto stated calmly. The demon brothers represented a manageable threat level that we neutralized effectively. While future opponents may be stronger, our team has demonstrated adequate coordination for a mission of elevated classification. I agree, Sasuke said, a gleam of excitement visible in his dark eyes. We handled these two without difficulty. I see no reason to turn back. Sakura hesitated only briefly. If both of you are staying, then so am I. We're a team. Kakashi studied them all for a long moment, pride and concern warring in his visible eye. Very well, he finally said. But understand this, from here on, we proceed with extreme caution. The next enemy we face will likely be Jonin level, having seen that the demon brothers failed. Tazuna's relief was palpable. Thank you, he whispered. All of you. My people won't forget this. As they resumed their journey, leaving the bound missing nin for Konoha retrieval units to collect, Naruto fell into step beside Kakashi. You knew, he said quietly. Before we left the village. You suspected this mission was misclassified. Kakashi's eyes slid toward him. What makes you say that? Your lack of surprise at the attack. Your immediate conclusion about targeting. The fact that you chose this particular mission despite the security situation in Konoha. A slight smile curved beneath Kakashi's mask. You really don't miss anything, do you, Naruto? It's not my nature to miss details. Naruto replied simply. Why did you accept this mission if you suspected deception? Kakashi was silent for several steps. Sometimes, he finally said. A team needs to be tested in the field, under real conditions. Controlled exposure to danger can accelerate growth more effectively than months of D-rank missions. You're using this as a training opportunity, Naruto observed. Calculated risk for accelerated development, something like that, Kakashi admitted. Though I wouldn't have continued if I didn't believe you three could handle it, Naruto nodded, satisfied with the explanation. The next opponent will likely be Jonin level, as you said. We should prepare tactical countermeasures. Already thinking ahead? Kakashi's eye crinkled with amusement. So much like your... He caught himself abruptly. Like who, sensei? Naruto asked, his blue eyes sharp with sudden interest. Kakashi waved a hand dismissively. Just thinking aloud. Yes, develop your countermeasures. We'll review them during our next rest break. As Kakashi quickened his pace to resume his position at point, Naruto's mind worked through the implications of that unfinished sentence. Like someone Kakashi had known. Someone who planned ahead, who calculated and strategized. Another piece of the puzzle that was his own identity, filed away for future consideration. For now, they had a mission to complete and enemies to prepare for. His personal mysteries would have to wait. Mist curled across the water's surface like ghostly fingers, muffling sound and limiting visibility to mere yards. The small boat cut through the fog silently, its motor quiet to avoid detection as they approached the shores of the land of waves. The air hung heavy with salt and secrecy, tension coiled among the passengers like a living thing. Naruto sat perfectly still, his senses straining beyond the veil of mist. 2 days had passed since their encounter with the demon brothers, 2 days of heightened vigilance and strategic planning. Now, as they neared their destination, the feeling of being watched prickled at the edges of his awareness. Beside him, Sasuke's hand rested casually near his weapon's pouch, dark eyes scanning the impenetrable wall of white surrounding them. Sakura maintained a protective position close to Tazuna, a kunai concealed in her palm. All 3 genin had spent their evening rest periods discussing contingencies and formations, preparing for the next inevitable confrontation. The bridge should be visible soon, the boatman whispered, his voice barely audible over the gentle lapping of water against the hull. It's quite a sight. As if summoned by his words, a massive shadow emerged from the mist, towering steel and concrete pylons rising from the sea, supporting a partially completed roadway that stretched toward the distant mainland. Even unfinished, the bridge was an impressive feat of engineering. That's it, Tazuna said, pride momentarily overriding his fear. Our bridge to freedom, quite an undertaking for a small island nation, Kakashi observed quietly. I understand now why Gato views it as such a threat. The boat curved around the bridge's support structures, heading toward a small inlet hidden from the main harbor. Gato controls the main ports, the boatman explained. I'll let you off here. This is as far as I go. They disembarked onto a small wooden dock, the mist thinning slightly as they moved inland. Dense forests replaced the coastal wetlands, the path narrowing as vegetation closed in around them. Naruto walked slightly ahead of the group, his heightened senses alert for any disturbance. A faint sound, a rustle too deliberate to be wind, caught his attention. Without breaking stride, he palmed a kunai and hurled it into a nearby bush. Everyone froze. Kakashi moved forward cautiously, parting the foliage to reveal a terrified white rabbit, the kunai embedded in the tree inches above its head. Naruto! Sakura scolded. You scared that poor rabbit half to death. But Naruto's eyes had narrowed, analyzing rather than apologizing. White fur in spring, he murmured. This rabbit was raised indoors, away from seasonal coat changes. A substitution target. Kakashi's eye widened in understanding just as a distinctive whistling sound cut through the air. Get down! He shouted, tackling Tazuna to the ground as the others dropped instantly. A massive sword spun through the space where their heads had been moments before, embedding itself in a tree trunk with a resounding thunk. Before anyone could react, a figure appeared standing on the sword's handle, a tall, muscular man with bandages covering the lower half of his face and a slashed Kirigakure headband. Momochi Zabuza, Naruto identified instantly, rising to a defensive position. A-rank missing nin from Kirigakure. Former member of the Seven Swordsmen. specializes in silent killing techniques and water jutsu. Zabuza's eyes fixed on Naruto with new interest. Well, a genin who does his homework. His gaze shifted to Kakashi. No wonder the demon brothers failed. Copy Ninja Kakashi, the man who's said to have copied over 1,000 jutsu. Kakashi stepped forward, his posture deceptively relaxed. Kids, protect Tazuna. This one is on a different level. With a smooth motion, he raised his headband, revealing a red eye with 3 tomos spinning lazily. The Sharingan. I'm honored. Zabuza chuckled darkly. The famous Sharingan right from the start. But enough talk. He yanked his massive sword from the tree, disappearing in a blur of movement only to reappear standing on the surface of a nearby pond. His hands formed seals with practiced precision. Ninja art, hidden miss jutsu. Thick fog rolled in, obscuring everything beyond arm's length. The air grew heavy with chakra-infused mist that seemed to swallow sound itself. 8 points. Zabuza's disembodied voice echoed from everywhere at once. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. So many choices for a kill strike. Which shall I choose? Killing intent saturated the air, so thick it felt almost tangible. Sasuke's hands trembled slightly, while Sakura's face had gone pale. Even Naruto felt the weight of it, the pure, focused malice of a trained killer. Stay calm. Kakashi's voice cut through their rising panic. I won't let my comrades die. In the same instant, Zabuza appeared in the center of their defensive formation, his massive sword already swinging toward Tazuna. We'll see about that. Kakashi moved with blinding speed, intercepting the strike with a kunai. Metal screeched against metal as the 2 jonin clashed, equal in their deadly purpose if not in physical strength. Manji formation! Naruto called to his teammates, instantly implementing one of their prepared defensive strategies. The 3 genin moved in perfect coordination, surrounding Tazuna in a triangular formation, weapons drawn. The clash between Kakashi and Zabuza escalated rapidly, both shinobi executing complex jutsu sequences that transformed the battlefield. Water clones shattered, substitutions revealed themselves, and the very environment became a weapon as Zabuza manipulated the surrounding water sources. He's good, Sasuke muttered, his Sharingan-less eyes struggling to track the high-speed combat. Really good. Kakashi-sensei is holding his own, Sakura observed, though tension strained her voice. Naruto watched with analytical intensity, memorizing movement patterns and jutsu sequences even as he maintained his defensive position. When Zabuza suddenly trapped Kakashi in a water prison jutsu, his mind instantly calculated response scenarios. Now for the brats. Zabuza growled, creating a water clone that stalked toward the genin and their charge. Formation Omega, Naruto said quietly to his teammates. Sasuke lead. Sakura support. I'll create the opening. They nodded, understanding the strategy they'd developed during their planning sessions. As Zabuza's water clone approached, mocking their playing at being ninja, Naruto created 5 shadow clones that charged forward in different patterns. The water clone dispatched Naruto's clones efficiently but had to commit to a full swing to deal with the final one, creating the momentary opening they needed. Sasuke launched into the air, hurling a demon wind shuriken with perfect form. But the shuriken wasn't aimed at the water clone. It curved around the clone, heading straight for the real Zabuza who still held Kakashi trapped in the water prison. Amateur move. Zabuza scoffed, catching the shuriken with his free hand, only for a second shuriken to emerge from the first one's shadow. Even this, Zabuza managed to evade with a jump, maintaining his hold on the water prison. Is that all you've got? The second shuriken poofed into smoke, revealing Naruto, who had transformed and hidden within Sasuke's attack. In midair, he flung a kunai directly at Zabuza's extended arm. Forced to choose between maintaining the prison and taking a kunai to the arm, Zabuza released the jutsu, freeing Kakashi with a curse. You brats! Ingenious teamwork, Kakashi said as he regained his footing on the water's surface. But now I'll take over. His Sharingan eye spun faster as he faced Zabuza once more. This ends now. What followed was a masterclass in the Sharingan's power. Kakashi mirrored Zabuza's every move, performing identical hand seals simultaneously, then completing them a fraction of a second faster. Psychological warfare combined with technical superiority, as Kakashi began to anticipate Zabuza's techniques before he could execute them. Can you see the future? Zabuza gasped as Kakashi stood over him, water cascading from both their forms, the copy ninja's Sharingan gleaming crimson in the mist. Yes, Kakashi replied coldly, raising a kunai for the killing blow. Your future is death. The air crackled with lethal intent, then shattered as two Saban needles whistled through the fog, piercing Zabuza's neck with surgical precision. The missing Nin's eyes widened in shock before rolling back, his massive frame crumpling to the ground like a puppet with cut strings. Everyone froze. A delicate figure in a hunter-nin mask appeared on a nearby branch, posture relaxed yet poised with unmistakable deadly grace. Thank you for your assistance, the newcomer called, voice muffled yet distinctly youthful behind the decorated mask. I've been tracking Zabuza for weeks, waiting for an opportunity. Naruto's eyes narrowed, cataloging inconsistencies even as Kakashi moved to check Zabuza's pulse. The hunter's height, build, and voice suggested someone barely older than the genin themselves. The precise needle placement. The timing of the intervention, just as Zabuza faced certain defeat. A Kirigakure hunter-nin, Kakashi confirmed, straightening up. He's dead, the masked figure bowed slightly. Your battle created the opening I needed. The mist has been attempting to eliminate Zabuza for some time. The neck is an unusual target for a kill strike, Naruto observed quietly, just loud enough for his team to hear. Hunter-nin protocol typically requires immediate body disposal on site. Kakashi's eye flickered toward him, registering the valid point. But before he could respond, the hunter-nin had moved with blinding speed, hefting Zabuza's considerable weight onto one shoulder with surprising strength. I must dispose of the body immediately. The secrets it contains are numerous. Another slight bow. Excuse me. In a swirl of wind and leaves, both figures vanished, leaving Team 7 and their client standing in a suddenly eerie silence. Well, Kakashi said, pulling his headband back down over his Sharingan. We should. His knees buckled suddenly, his tall frame pitching forward. Naruto and Sasuke lunged simultaneously, catching their sensei before he hit the ground. Chakra exhaustion, Naruto diagnosed, noting the pallor of Kakashi's visible skin. The Sharingan consumes substantial energy from non-Uchiha users. We need shelter, Sasuke said, adjusting his grip on Kakashi's arm. Tazuna stepped forward, guilt and gratitude warring on his weathered face. My house isn't far. You can recover there. It's the least I can offer after what you've done. They fashioned a makeshift stretcher from branches and cloaks, Naruto creating shadow clones to carry the unconscious Jonin, while the original maintained vigilance alongside his teammates. As they trekked through the increasingly poor villages of Wave Country, the evidence of Gado's economic stranglehold became painfully apparent. Hollow-eyed children peered from doorways, abandoned boats rotted in dried-up harbors, and an atmosphere of defeat hung over the once prosperous fishing communities. Now you understand, Tazuna murmured, noticing their grim observations. This is what Gado has done to our home. This is why the bridge matters. Tazuna's house stood near the water's edge, a modest two-story wooden structure, well-maintained despite the poverty surrounding it. They were greeted at the door by Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter, whose worried expression softened into relief at the sight of her father. You made it back safely, she breathed, ushering them inside before her eyes widened at the sight of Kakashi. What happened? Your father's bodyguard saved us all, Sakura explained as they carefully maneuvered Kakashi onto a futon in the main room. But he's exhausted himself in the process. While Tsunami prepared hot tea and a simple meal, Naruto pulled his teammates aside, voice low and urgent. Zabuza's alive. Sasuke's eyes narrowed instantly, while Sakura's widened in alarm. The hunter-nin used Saban, Naruto continued, which rarely cause fatal injuries unless striking specific vital points. The neck contains the vagus nerve, which when compressed can induce a death-like state. Furthermore, hunter-nin protocol requires immediate decapitation and incineration of targeted bodies, not transportation. You think they're working together? Sasuke concluded, pieces falling into place. Naruto nodded. The hunter-nin provided a convenient escape mechanism. I estimate Zabuza will require approximately 1 week to recover from the temporary paralysis. 1 week? Sakura whispered, glancing toward their unconscious sensei. Will Kakashi-sensei be recovered by then? Unknown, Naruto replied. But regardless, we should use this time to prepare. A groan from the futon interrupted their hushed conference. Kakashi's eye fluttered open, awareness returning slowly as he took in his surroundings with the instinctive wariness of a veteran shinobi. Sensei! Sakura hurried to his side. How are you feeling? Like I've been trampled by guys summoning tortoise. Kakashi muttered, attempting to sit up before wincing and lying back down. Where are we? Tazuna's home. Naruto informed him, kneeling beside the futon. Approximately 3 kilometers from our confrontation site. You're suffering from chakra exhaustion. Estimated recovery time, 5 to 7 days. Kakashi's eye crinkled slightly. Always so precise, Naruto. His expression sobered. But I've been thinking about our hunter-nin friend while drifting in and out of consciousness. Something wasn't right. Zabas is alive. All 3 genin stated in unison. A moment of surprise flickered across Kakashi's visible features before settling into resigned acknowledgement. I see you've worked that out as well. He sighed deeply. This complicates matters. We have approximately 1 week before he returns, Naruto stated. Time we can use for preparation. Kakashi studied his students, something like pride glimmering in his exhausted eye. Indeed. And I think it's time for some specialized training. Dawn painted the forest clearing with gilded light, dew glistening on leaves like scattered diamonds. 3 genin stood attentively before their sensei, who had managed to hobble to the training ground on crutches, his usual lazy demeanor belied by the sharpness in his visible eye. Today, Kakashi announced, you're going to climb trees. Sasuke's brow furrowed. Tree climbing? We did that in the academy, not like this, Kakashi replied with a hint of mischief. He formed a hand seal, concentrating briefly before walking, vertically, up the trunk of a nearby pine, his crutches and all. The genin watched as he strolled casually out onto the underside of a branch, hanging upside down with nothing but chakra adhering him to the wood. No hands, Sakura breathed, understanding immediately. Chakra control exercise, precisely, Kakashi confirmed. You'll focus chakra to your feet. Too little and you fall, too much and you damage the tree, repelling yourself off. It requires precise control. He tossed 3 kunai that thudded into the ground before each genin. Use these to mark your progress. The goal is to reach the top. Naruto picked up his kunai, analyzing the mechanics of the exercise. Theoretically straightforward, yet practically challenging given his massive reserves. This was exactly the type of control training he needed. Begin, Kakashi instructed, settling against a tree trunk to observe. All 3 genin formed the concentration seal, gathering chakra to their feet before charging towards separate trees. Sasuke made it several steps up before his excessive force splintered the bark, sending him flipping backward. Naruto managed 3 steps before similar feedback launched him away. Sakura, however, walked calmly all the way to the top of her tree, settling on a high branch with a look of surprised delight. Well done, Sakura! Kakashi called up. Excellent control. Naruto analyzed the outcome, conclusions forming instantly. Sakura has naturally precise control due to her smaller reserves, he observed aloud. Sasuke and I both overloaded the connection point. Sasuke shot him an irritated glance, clearly not appreciating the public analysis of his failure. He attacked his tree again with grim determination, making slightly better progress before being repelled once more. Naruto took a different approach. He created a shadow clone and sent it up the tree first, observing the exact point of failure. With each attempt, he methodically adjusted his chakra output, treating it as a calibration exercise rather than a test of willpower. By midday, Sakura had mastered the technique completely and now practiced maintaining it while performing other tasks. Sasuke had reached 3/4 of the way up his tree, his progress marked by dozens of slash lines showing his stubborn persistence. Naruto, after an hour of frustrating false starts, had developed a system. He used shadow clones to test multiple calibration levels simultaneously, then dispelled them to absorb their experiences. By early afternoon, he could reach the midpoint of his tree consistently, though the effort required absolute concentration. Your chakra levels are extraordinary, Kakashi remarked, observing Naruto's unique training method. Most genin would have collapsed from exhaustion hours ago, yet you're maintaining shadow clones while practicing an advanced control exercise. Naruto met his sensei's gaze, recognizing the unspoken question about his stamina's source. I've always had large reserves, he replied neutrally. Kakashi nodded, understanding the need for discretion around the topic of the Nine Tails. Your approach to the exercise is innovative. I've never seen someone use shadow clones as a training method before. The memory transfer function creates an efficient feedback loop, Naruto explained, wiping sweat from his brow. Each clone provides distinct data points that can be aggregated for analysis. A thoughtful expression crossed Kakashi's visible features. That has interesting implications for accelerated learning. Indeed, Naruto agreed, having already calculated the exponential training value. Though mental integration becomes problematic beyond certain clone numbers. Information overload causes cognitive disruption. How many can you handle? Kakashi asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Naruto considered. Currently, approximately 20 simultaneous memory streams before diminishing returns. With practice, perhaps more. A low whistle escaped Kakashi. Most jonin can't create more than a handful of shadow clones without risking chakra depletion. Naruto simply nodded, returning to his training without elaboration. They both knew why he was different, though neither would say it aloud. As the sun began its western descent, Sasuke had nearly reached his treetop, frustration giving way to focused determination. Sakura, having mastered the basic exercise, now practiced kunai throwing while adhering to vertical surfaces. Naruto had developed enough control to reach 2/3 up his tree, though consistency remained elusive. That's enough for today, Kakashi called, rising stiffly from his seated position. We'll continue tomorrow. Remember, Zabuza will likely return within the week, and we need to be prepared. On their walk back to Tazuna's house, Naruto fell into step beside Sasuke, who maintained a brooding silence, clearly dissatisfied with his progress despite his significant advancement. Your control is improving rapidly, Naruto observed. Sasuke shot him a suspicious glance. What's your point? I'm still struggling with consistency due to my reserves. Naruto continued, his tone carefully neutral. Trading observations might benefit us both. A moment of surprise flickered across Sasuke's features, followed by wary consideration. The Uchiha wasn't accustomed to collaborative learning, especially with someone he'd long dismissed as irrelevant to his goals. Fine, he finally muttered. What have you noticed? The chakra flow needs constant micro-adjustments based on bark texture and angle, Naruto offered. I've found visualizing it as a responsive current rather than a fixed output improves adhesion. Sasuke nodded slowly. I noticed something similar. Also, emotional state affects control. When I get frustrated, the flow becomes erratic. This simple exchange, pragmatic and brief, represented something significant between the two boys. Not friendship exactly, but a tentative acknowledgement of mutual utility, perhaps even respect. Dinner at Tazuna's home was a subdued affair. Despite Tsunami's efforts to make their simple meal hospitable, the atmosphere remained tense. Tazuna's grandson, Inari, watched the shinobi with undisguised skepticism, his young face hardened beyond his years. Why do you bother? The boy finally burst out during a lull in conversation. No one can stand up to Gato. You're all just going to die pointlessly. Sakura looked taken aback, while Sasuke merely raised an eyebrow at the outburst. Naruto observed the child with analytical interest, noting the pain behind the hostility, the protective shell of cynicism covering deeper wounds. Inari! Tsunami scolded, but Kakashi raised a hand to gently silence her. Your concern is understandable, the Jonin said calmly. Gato has power here, and power often seems invincible to those under its thumb. You don't understand anything about our suffering, Inari shouted, tears welling in his eyes. Coming here, acting like heroes, you know nothing, Tazuna sighed heavily. Inari, these people are risking their lives to help us. Then they're stupid. Everyone who stands up to Gato dies. Just like. The boy choked on his words, pushing away from the table and running from the room, the sound of his sobs lingering in the air. An uncomfortable silence followed his departure. Tsunami's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she stared at her hands. "I apologize," she said softly. "Since his father was killed, Inari has lost faith in heroes." "His father?" Sakura prompted gently. Tazuna nodded heavily, setting down his chopsticks. "Not his biological father, but the man who came into his life and taught him courage. Kaiza. He was a fisherman who saved Inari from drowning years ago, and eventually married Tsunami." As Tazuna related the story of Kaiza, a simple man who had become the village's hero through brave deeds, only to be publicly executed by Gato as an example, Naruto listened with unusual intensity, something resonating within him beyond mere tactical interest. "Since that day," Tazuna concluded, his voice heavy with grief, "Inari has never believed in heroes again. The whole village lost hope." The room fell silent once more, each shinobi absorbed in private thoughts. Sakura looked on the verge of tears, while Sasuke's expression had darkened, perhaps finding uncomfortable parallels to his own trauma. Naruto rose from the table, his movement precise and deliberate. "Where are you going?" Sakura asked. "To continue training," he replied simply. "Gato's cruelty is maintained through the power differential between his forces and the villagers. To protect Tazuna and complete our mission, we must shift that differential." Kakashi studied him with that penetrating gaze that always seemed to see more than Naruto intended to reveal. "Don't overdo it. You'll need your strength." Naruto nodded once before slipping out into the moonlit night. The forest embraced him with its shadows as he returned to their training ground, the trees standing like silent sentinels against the star-strewn sky. He created a dozen shadow clones and set them to work on the tree-climbing exercise, each one approaching the task with methodical precision. The original Naruto, however, stood motionless in the clearing's center, his expression uncharacteristically troubled. Inari's pain had triggered something unexpected within him, not merely analytical understanding, but a flicker of genuine empathy. The boy's story of loss and disillusionment carried echoes of what might have been Naruto's own path had he not channeled his isolation into relentless self-improvement. "Emotional responses compromise objective analysis," he murmured to himself, an oft-repeated personal mantra. Yet tonight, for reasons he couldn't quite calculate, the words rang hollow beneath the indifferent stars. Morning mist coiled through the forest like pale serpents, softening the edges of trees and rocks as Naruto methodically worked through a series of taijutsu forms. His movements flowed with liquid precision, each strike and block executed with economy of motion rather than flashy power. 3 days had passed since their confrontation with Zabuza, days filled with intense training and growing tension as they anticipated the missing Nin's recovery. "Your form is unusual," came Sasuke's voice from the edge of the clearing. The Uchiha leaned against a tree, arms crossed, observing with critical attention. "Not standard academy style," Naruto completed his sequence before responding, not a hint of surprise at his teammate's unexpected appearance. "I modified it based on historical accounts of the 4th Hokage's fighting style. Emphasis on speed and precision rather than power." Sasuke pushed off from the tree, moving into the clearing with casual grace. "Show me." It wasn't a request but a demand. Typical Sasuke, direct, borderline arrogant, yet driven by genuine desire to improve. Naruto studied him for a moment, calculating the potential benefits of this interaction. "Very well. The style relies on creating openings through misdirection rather than overwhelming force." He demonstrated a basic sequence, a feint followed by a swift palm strike to a pressure point, then immediate repositioning. Sasuke watched intently, his dark eyes tracking every subtle shift in weight and balance. "Again," he commanded. "Slower," Naruto obliged, breaking down the movements into their component parts. Without discussion, they fell into an impromptu training session, Sasuke attempting to replicate the techniques while Naruto offered precise corrections. There was no friendly banter, no unnecessary conversation, just two shinobi engaged in the serious business of improving their combat effectiveness. After an hour, Sakura appeared at the edge of the clearing, a bento box in each hand. "There you both are! Tsunami-san was worried when you missed breakfast." Sasuke straightened from his stance, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool morning air. "Lost track of time. You've been training since before dawn, haven't you?" Sakura sighed, setting the boxes on a fallen log. Here, at least eat something. Naruto accepted the food with a polite nod. Thank you, Sakura. Your thoughtfulness is appreciated. A faint blush touched her cheeks at the formal compliment. Over the past days, something had shifted in their team dynamic. Not quite friendship in the conventional sense, but a growing interdependence and mutual respect born of shared purpose and danger. How's Kakashi-sensei? Sasuke asked, opening his bento. Much better, Sakura reported, sitting beside them. He says he'll be ready for light training tomorrow, though he's still relying on the crutch. 3 days recovery from severe chakra exhaustion is remarkable, Naruto observed between precise bites. His physical conditioning must be exceptional. He was telling me about Zabuza and his fake hunter-nin partner. Sakura continued. He thinks the accomplice is likely a wielder of a Kekkai Genkai, possibly Ice Release, based on the Senbon precision and the missed history of bloodline abilities. Naruto nodded appreciatively at her intelligence gathering. Excellent information. Ice Release would represent a significant tactical challenge, especially in this environment with abundant water sources. We should assume both opponents will be at full strength within the next 2 days, Sasuke said grimly. Zabuza alone was nearly too much for Kakashi. With a second high-level enemy, our tree-climbing progress suggests improved chakra control, Naruto noted. Both of you have mastered the technique. I've achieved approximately 87% consistency. That's not enough, Sasuke said bluntly. I concur, Naruto agreed, surprising both teammates with his easy acceptance of the criticism. Which is why I've been supplementing with tactical analysis and alternative technique development. Sakura leaned forward with interest. What kind of techniques? An adaptation of the shadow clone deployment for combat scenarios, Naruto explained. Using predictive positioning to maximize coverage and create opening opportunities. Show us, Sasuke demanded, setting aside his half-finished meal. Naruto rose, creating 6 shadow clones with a cross-shaped hand seal. Without verbal instructions, the clones moved into a hexagonal formation around an imaginary opponent. As they attacked in sequence, each clone's movement created openings exploited by the next. A synchronized dance of feints and strikes that would force even an experienced fighter to divide their attention. Impressive, Sakura breathed. They move like they share a single mind. They do, essentially, Naruto explained, dispelling the clones. Each holds my complete tactical understanding, allowing for perfect coordination without communication delays. Sasuke's eyes narrowed in calculation. Could you coordinate with us the same way? Real-time tactical adjustments as the situation changes? An intriguing possibility, Naruto acknowledged. Though you lack the direct neural linkage my clones share with me, we could develop a shorthand communication system for battlefield adjustments. For the remainder of the day, they worked on just that, creating subtle hand signals, code words, and positioning cues that would allow them to execute complex maneuvers with minimal verbal communication. Kakashi found them late in the afternoon, his visible eye widening slightly at the sophisticated system they'd developed in his absence. My cute little genin, creating their own A and BU-style communication protocols, he remarked, leaning on his crutch. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or concerned. Both would be appropriate, Naruto replied without irony. Improved coordination increases our combat effectiveness, but our inexperience remains a limiting factor against Jonin-level opponents. Kakashi's eye crinkled. Always so analytical, Naruto. He looked around at the training ground, noting the kunai-marked trees and disturbed earth from their practice. Your dedication is admirable, but remember that rest is also part of effective preparation. Return to the house soon. We'll have a strategy session after dinner. As he hobbled away, Sakura glanced at her teammates. He's right. We should rest before tomorrow. Sasuke nodded reluctantly, gathering his equipment. Naruto, however, remained still, his blue eyes fixed on the distant trees with unusual intensity. You coming? Sasuke asked, an edge of impatience in his voice. Shortly, Naruto replied. I want to check something first. His teammates exchanged glances before leaving him alone in the gathering dusk. Once they were gone, Naruto moved deeper into the forest, his footsteps silent as he navigated by memory to a specific clearing he discovered during his night training. Medicinal herbs grew in abundance there, plants known for their healing properties. Precisely the sort that would be gathered by someone nursing an injured accomplice back to health. He settled into a concealed position, creating a shadow clone to maintain watch while he meditated, regulating his breathing and replenishing his chakra reserves. The night deepened around him, crickets and nocturnal creatures resuming their activities after determining he posed no threat. Nearly 2 hours passed before his vigilance was rewarded. A slight figure entered the clearing, movements graceful and precise as they knelt beside the herb patches, slender fingers carefully selecting specific plants and placing them in a small basket. Naruto observed silently, confirming his hypothesis. The herb gatherer was slight but athletic, with long dark hair and delicate features that belied the deadly skill displayed during their earlier encounter. The hunter-nin, without their mask, he discreetly dispelled his clone, absorbing its memories to ensure nothing had been missed, then deliberately stepped on a twig as he rose from his hiding place. The figure froze, head turning sharply toward the sound. For an instant, chakra flared in preparation for combat before recognition flickered across those refined features. "You're that boy," the hunter-nin said softly. "From the clearing with Zabuza-san, and you're the false hunter-nin who saved him." Naruto replied calmly, making no aggressive moves but remaining perfectly balanced for instant response. A tense silence stretched between them, either attacking yet neither relaxing. "You're either very brave or very foolish to approach me alone," the ninja finally said, voice gentle despite the implicit threat. "Or perhaps calculating acceptable risk ratios," Naruto countered. "You won't engage me here. Combat would compromise Zabuza's recovery timeline and potentially reveal your location." Something like surprise flickered across the beautiful face. "You're not like most genin, are you? I could say the same about you," Naruto observed. "Your age seems inconsistent with your skill level." A small, sad smile touched the hunter-nin's lips. "When one's existence is deemed a crime from birth, one learns quickly or perishes." Naruto tilted his head slightly. "You possess a Kekkai Genkai, one of the bloodline purge survivors." The smile faded, wariness returning. "You know much for one so young. Information has value," Naruto replied simply. "Indeed it does." The hunter-nin gathered up their basket, movements deliberately unhurried. "Tell me, why reveal yourself to me? You could have observed and departed undetected, reporting my location to your sensei." Naruto considered the question, analyzing his own motivations with the same precision he applied to external phenomena. "Curiosity," he finally said. "About someone who would dedicate themselves to a missing nin rather than accept the conventional path. Some bonds transcend village loyalties," came the soft reply. "Zabuza-san saved me when all others would have seen me dead for the blood in my veins. My purpose is to be his weapon, his tool." "A tool?" Naruto echoed, something unidentifiable stirring within him at the words. "Is that how you see yourself?" "It is what I am," the hunter-nin stated with serene certainty. "As shinobi, are we not all tools in service to greater purposes?" The question lingered in the night air between them, unexpectedly resonant. Naruto had never framed his existence in those exact terms, yet the parallels to his own methodical self-development were undeniable. "You have a name," he said finally. "Beyond your function." A slight hesitation. "Haku, Naruto," he offered in return. Haku smiled, a genuine expression that transformed their deadly grace into something almost innocent. "When next we meet, Naruto, it will be as enemies. I will fight to protect Zabuza-san's dream, as I'm sure you will fight to protect your precious people. We have our assigned roles." Naruto acknowledged. "Yes." Haku turned to leave, then paused. "You know, you remind me of myself, in some ways. Perhaps in another life, we might have been friends." Before Naruto could respond, Haku vanished into the darkened forest, leaving only the faint scent of herbs and earth lingering in the clearing. For several long minutes, Naruto remained motionless, processing the unexpected encounter with his characteristic thoroughness. The interaction had provided valuable intelligence, confirmation of the Ice Kekkai Genkai, insight into Haku's fighting motivation, and an estimated timeline for Zabuza's recovery. Yet something else lingered, something less quantifiable that continued to resonate within him as he made his way back to Tazuna's house. As shinobi, are we not all tools in service to greater purposes? The question followed him through the silent forest like an echo seeking its source. Naruto, where were you? Sakura demanded as he slipped into the house well after dinner had concluded. Kakashi-sensei delayed the strategy meeting waiting for you. Reconnaissance, he replied simply, nodding respectfully to Kakashi, who observed him with unusual sharpness from his seat at the table. Discover anything interesting? The Jonin asked, his casual tone belied by the intensity in his visible eye. Naruto met his gaze directly. The hunter-nin's name is Haku. Possesses ice-release Kekii Genkai as Sakura predicted. Collects medicinal herbs approximately 3 kilometers northeast of this location, suggesting that's near their hideout. Deeply loyal to Zabuza, views self as his tool. A stunned silence followed his matter-of-fact report. You actually found and spoke with the enemy? Sakura finally managed, her voice rising in pitch. You confronted a Jonin-level opponent alone? Sasuke demanded, anger and something like concern mingling in his voice. Kakashi set down his tea with deliberate care. Naruto, that was extremely reckless. It was a calculated risk. Naruto countered calmly. Haku won't risk compromising Zabuza's recovery with premature confrontation. The intelligence gained outweighs the potential danger. That wasn't your call to make, Kakashi said, his voice uncharacteristically stern. Acting independently in enemy territory endangers not just yourself but the entire mission. Something flickered in Naruto's eyes, a rare hint of emotion breaking through his composed exterior. I apologize, Sensei. My analysis failed to adequately weigh team coordination factors. The genuine contrition in his voice seemed to catch Kakashi off guard. The Jonin sighed, his posture softening slightly. The information is valuable, I won't deny that. But next time, discuss your reconnaissance plans beforehand. Naruto nodded once, accepting the correction without further justification. No. Kakashi continued, unrolling a rough map of the area on the table. Let's use what we know to develop our strategy. Based on Naruto's intelligence and my own assessment, we can expect Zabuza to make his move within the next day or two. Their primary target remains Tazuna, so our defensive formation will center on him at the bridge construction site. The strategy session continued late into the night, plans and contingencies developed with meticulous attention to detail. When they finally retired to their sleeping quarters, exhaustion hung heavy over the team, yet sleep proved elusive for Naruto, his mind continuing to process the day's events long after his teammates' breathing had settled into the rhythm of slumber. He slipped silently from his futon, moving to the small window that overlooked the mist-shrouded bay. The bridge's silhouette rose from the water like a promise half-fulfilled, its incomplete span reaching toward a mainland that seemed as distant as certainty. Trouble sleeping? Came Kakashi's quiet voice from the doorway. Naruto didn't turn, having sensed his sensei's approach. Processing possibilities, Kakashi moved to stand beside him, his tall frame leaning slightly on his crutch as he too gazed out at the ghostly bridge. Your encounter with Haku bothers you. It wasn't a question, but Naruto answered anyway. Not in terms of tactical implications. No, Kakashi agreed. Something else. A long silence stretched between them, comfortable in its weight. Kakashi seemed content to wait, understanding that Naruto's careful precision with words extended to emotional matters as well. He called himself a tool, Naruto finally said, his voice softer than usual. Existing only to fulfill Zabuza's purpose. Ah. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled in understanding. And that resonated with you. Naruto's gaze remained fixed on the distant bridge. I have structured my development around optimization and purpose. The parallels are notable. There's a difference, Kakashi observed gently, between having purpose and being nothing but a tool. One retains agency, the other surrenders it. The distinction seems semantic rather than functional. Is it? Kakashi turned slightly, studying his student's profile in the moonlight, so eerily reminiscent of another face carved in stone above Konoha. Why do you train, Naruto? Why pursue strength and knowledge with such intensity? The question hung in the air, unexpectedly complex for all its simplicity. Naruto's brow furrowed slightly as he considered. To fulfill potential, he finally answered. To become effective. Effective at what? Kakashi pressed. To what end? To. Naruto hesitated, something almost vulnerable flashing across his usually composed features. To protect what matters, Kakashi nodded slowly. And that's the difference. A tool doesn't choose what matters. A tool doesn't decide what's worth protecting. He placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, a rare physical gesture from the normally aloof Jonin. Don't mistake your methodical nature for the absence of choice, Naruto. You may calculate and analyze, but the values driving those calculations are yours. The words settled between them, weighty with implications that extended far beyond their current mission. For once, Naruto offered no immediate response, his analytical mind encountering a parameter it hadn't fully incorporated before. Kakashi squeezed his shoulder once before turning to leave. Get some sleep, he said quietly. Tomorrow will require all our focus. Left alone at the window, Naruto continued his silent vigil over the mist-shrouded bay, the conversation replaying in his mind with perfect recall. In the water's dark surface below, his reflection stared back at him, familiar yet somehow changed, like a calculation yielding an unexpected result.